Welcome back to day 18 of the Alec Murdaugh murder trial. This is the afternoon. We ended on the defendant's third interview in August of 2021 after the June killings, shortly before the September roadside incident. It's Wednesday. Today is the day that the Emily show drops, so that is on your favorite podcasting app now. Court is not back yet. We're back. We're back. I hope you all had a good lunch break. We have a lot to talk about. We're gonna go ahead and roll the intro, answer some questions, talk about the morning, and of course, maybe send you to get some limited edition Law Nerd merch. Maybe, just maybe.
Hey there, I'm Emily D. Baker, the internet's go-to legal analyst, breaking down the legal side of the pop culture and entertainment stories we can't stop talking about. I'm a big fan of the cursey words. I've been a licensed attorney for over 17 years, but this is not legal advice. This is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts. Not. Let's get into it.
Look, if you have not, I'm going to just share. If you do not know that we have a merch shop, it is over at lawnerdsunite.com. This red Law Nerd Love mug is a limited edition. It was released several years ago for Valentine's Day. It went into the vault. It is back out of the vault. So if you want to go to lawnerdshop.com, that is available for you with our new embroidered hoodies. The fax hat that are 3D puffy hats like the ones I wear. The purple one is probably what I'm going to wear tomorrow because I haven't worn the purple one on stream in a while. This is the purple one. The black one is just with black. It's great. So if you want a hat that's kind of subtle, the black one's great. If you're like, facts, the purple one might be for you. I think we'll release some other colors in those. We're going to let the members vote over at lawnerdsunite.com. But that's there for you. We've got some of our merch that came to be during Depp v. Heard, because how can you not? How can you not? I love this so much. My kid has this on a number of his things at school. It just makes me giggle. We do ship. There are very few countries we don't ship to. Our distribution has distribution centers in Australia, in the UK. So when we do ship internationally, you are not getting hit with quite all of the taxes because they are coming from inside the country. And that's one of the reasons that we have not moved to other distributors, even though there are some other things we would like to have. It's because of how easy the international shipping is with our distributors. So yes, lots and lots and lots. So yes, in the EU, yes, in Canada. The only thing that takes a long time to get to Canada are the mugs because of where they are shipped from. It looks like the court security is moving people around, which is interesting, like shifting people in court, which is interesting to see. I don't know why people are being shifted, but people are being shifted around, which is interesting. All right. We're just watching people shift. The judge hasn't said anything yet. I haven't heard them say bring the jury. Maybe they have. I'm going to switch feeds real quick and see if we have brought the jury. This morning was interesting. I don't know, and y'all are welcome to chat in the chat about it.
The jury's present, Your Honor.
They already brought the jury.
Thank you. You may proceed.
This audio is so bad.
Yes, sir.
I might have to switch audio. I don't know if there's any more to this video. I know that they redacted out the end of the video because Alec walks off. We heard about that in other witness testimony. Oh, resuming with the video. All right. Here we go.
All we ask, when was the last time that gun had been seen? Do you know of?
I know that we looked for it around the Christmas holidays.
I'm going to switch so we can see the video
around
bigger.
The Christmas holidays. I asked about it around the Christmas holidays.
No, I'm not. We'll watch it again later.
20? This past Christmas holidays? Okay. And that was the replacement, what I guess we call it.
That's correct.
Okay.
I feel like some of the videos cut off. Give me 1 second.
Still trying to figure this out. I cannot exclude the boat incident and those involved. I know that
I think that's easier to
currently
see.
going through the civil portion.
You let me know what you think of the chat.
How far had that progressed? I mean, were you all in the talks? Was it breaking down?
Can I say something real quick? I know nothing about the any of that stuff, and he's represented by lawyers in that case. I don't think I personally believe he shouldn't be talking about that.
Corey Fleming's doing his job in here.
He's represented by participate. I don't think it's. I mean, I'm sure that they're happy to do that, but I don't think that the person should be talking about.
For all Corey Fleming has done,
the lawyers knowing about
this
it
is fair.
and what. Because I just don't. I know nothing about it. I'm completely separated from it. I don't mind. You know, I have insurance companies hire lawyers.
You shouldn't talk about this. I don't mind. Okay.
And then, you know, some of my partners are helping with that also. But, you know,
Alec just overrides him.
it's
I don't mind as I'm
made some
going.
progress. You know, it's still unresolved, but it's not in its initial stages.
Alex said, what I'm going to do is keep talking.
And what I'm...
Oh, Corey
what I'm
Fleming
getting
was
at with
disbarred for
you
his
know,
part in
it's progress.
stealing
I
from the
just wanna make sure that
Satterfields.
it's not make sure bad word there. You know, did one party say this and y'all countered or something like that where the other people are pissed off, and now we have somebody out there with more motive because now they're thinking, you know, Paul's going to get away with this. And
I mean, I'm not aware of any of those discussions. The only thing that I am aware of is that I've learned that one of the daddies of one of the kids in the boat wreck
Whose dad are you talking about?
went to lengths to, or maybe it was his son, I don't know, but I was told that there are people out there that were being told you can't be friends with Paul and the Murdaughs and with us. You gotta choose.
and that was a dad going out telling...
I don't know.
Or,
I mean-
it was that dad or that
I'm
kid.
being told that people are being told that people said they can't be friends
I
with
don't
Paul
know
and
that.
us.
I was told by a person who had been told that. It's Nate Tootin is the boy's name. So
Is that,
you can find out
is
from
that
him.
any kin to Nolan?
It's Nolan's younger brother. It's Nolan's younger brother. So
I'm not surprised people were picking sides. It's hearsay on hearsay on hearsay with people picking sides, which with 20-year-olds,
just y'all mind Lester and I have a deal. Bus.
with he's so comfortable he's answering the phone. With 20-year-olds, I'm not surprised.
Buster.
Oh, it's all hearsay, but this is the defendant's police interview. It's not offered for the truth. It's what he's telling police, so it's not offered for the truth. So even though, yes, it's layers and layers of hearsay, it's admissible. But he is obviously not feeling the heat of this interrogation because he picks up his fucking phone and walks out the door.
Apparently there's a period here where we've agreed we'll fast forward, which will pick back up when he
The
comes back in.
reason it's not edited
And the
out
defense
is
has agreed with that, is my
because
understanding.
this is a criminal case. So they could have prearranged with defense and the court to edit out some of these dead zones, but you can't just edit a video that's an interrogation video without going through the proper processes in court. And the defense would have moved to show the whole thing for completeness.
You don't have any more questions?
So this dude is not feeling the pressure of a hot interrogation at this moment. He picked up his phone and walked right out. This is a non-custodial interrogation.
This is the Snapchat video that I'm talking about from Paul's phone.
Wait, is this the dog video? They said they didn't have it. Or is this the tree video?
Okay, I tell you what. Yeah, we were laughing about that because
Tree.
he's laughing because I'd gone to great lengths to try to, that tree got knocked over, and I'd gone to great lengths to try to get it to, be upright.
Okay.
And,
Was that night?
Tree video.
Because the friends that we talked to said it was posted that night.
I'm not sure.
He said, is that night? Answer, I'm not sure. Because he knows the clothes are different.
Somebody's phone on?
Or he doesn't remember.
Somebody's phone on? No, it's somebody's phone. I hear like somebody talking in the background. Okay. Like it was a call that had dropped or something.
Oh, those coughs, I'm sorry. This is an interview on August 11th. I don't think he knew that Paul recorded this at all.
You need something? Okay. Anybody from the boat or their family that you've heard or know of any issues with them recently or prior to this incident?
Like any confrontations?
Or them saying anything in the community about the lawsuit or the pending charges, anything that would kind of lead me?
I mean, David, I told you about the, Kenya, tree horn, a month or so, maybe 6 weeks before this happened, called me, just all out of sorts, and told me, I told you about this,
Yes, sir.
right?
We've interviewed her, yes, sir.
So,
Warning.
she
Wild
said
story incoming.
She'd heard it from 2 different places that family from the boat wreck was, it was over the top that I really didn't, pay it a bunch of attention.
That's the same exact way he told the story about the story he heard from Paul.
She said she didn't know who the people were, but she said that it was with a friend. It was at a friend's party.
Same way he told the Navy SEALs story.
She knew who the friend was and would take y'all to the friend. So, has she talked to you about that?
She's given us very little.
Do you feel like she's being evasive? Because let me tell you what I've tried not to do. I know y'all have to look at me. I've tried to have as little discussions with the people that y'all are interviewing.
Say what?
With all this talk about how I fixed this and fixed that with the boat wreck, which is totally untrue.
You've been charged for that now.
Not have a lot of conversation.
The
with
boat
people
wreck's
that,
in.
I know y'all need to talk to.
Fix this and fix that.
Well, the problem that I encounter, and I think everybody in law enforcement encounters in any investigation, people on the street talk, and they run their mouth, and they'll talk to friends, and they'll talk to families, and they'll talk to victims. But when the police show up, they keep their mouth shut.
So she's not talking to you.
She has given us some information.
Okay.
Some information.
So is there a problem with me going to her and,
I'm not going to answer that.
Yeah, there's a problem with you going to anybody.
So you're not telling me not to do it?
I'm not going to answer that.
Okay. Either way.
Yeah,
I'll get somebody to talk to her.
I'll get somebody to talk to her.
To cooperate with you.
Darn, allergies.
I'll get somebody to talk to her.
Excuse me.
Who she is one of the moms.
All right, do you have any more
Of the
questions?
boat case.
that
I didn't
might
know
be
which
able to
one.
Answer. And if you can't think of any now, reach out, call me.
I will know. I mean, you've answered a lot of things I had questions about, and I appreciate it.
And I'll call the Bransteaders and see if they want to meet. Maybe get Marion up there at the same time so I can just meet with them all together. Does Marion, I know they live on the Waterloo, does Marion work?
No, she doesn't work. And they're kind of between Wadmalaw and, I mean, they're residents of the state of Florida, but they're here as much as they're in Greenville a lot right now.
Yeah, because of
The
grandbaby.
baby, that's right.
That is the sister's, Maggie's sister's grandchild.
Yeah. I just, a few more questions.
Okay?
Did you kill Maggie?
No. Did I kill my wife?
Yes, sir.
No, David.
Do you know who did?
No, I do not know who did.
Did you kill Paul?
No, I did not kill Paul.
Do you know who did?
No, sir, I do not know who did. Do you think I killed Maggie?
Woo!
I have to go where the evidence and the facts
I
take me.
understand that.
My
You
sound's a
think I
little
killed
off.
Paul?
I have to go where the evidence and the facts take me, and I don't have anything that points to anybody else at this time.
Oh!
So does that mean that I am a suspect?
Oh!
You were still in, like I told Corey earlier, you were still in this.
How is he not screaming at this cop right now?
With everything that we've talked about, with the family guns.
I'd be
the
screaming.
ammunition,
I'd be screaming.
Nobody else's DNA. I have to put my beliefs aside and go with the facts.
I have to go with the facts, he says. All right, I'm going to switch back to our other feed.
There's one sentence after that before we redacted. We both agreed that I could leave and ask you, after that last question, did he say, well, I understand, I mean, and shaking his head?
Yes.
He didn't react much to, did you kill your wife? The reaction was not, the fuck did you just say to me? That was not the reaction we saw. And they are going to argue his reaction.
So on August 11th.
He was comfortable to stand up. He could have stood up and
2021.
said, that's preposterous. Find who killed my wife.
After this interview, during this interview, did you consider Alex Murdaugh a suspect in the death of his son and his wife?
He was the only known suspect at that time, yes.
At that time?
And that day, was the case transferred from Solicitor Duffy Stone to Attorney General Alan Wilson with the South Carolina Attorney General's office?
Yes, it was.
Took too long to do that. Took way too long to do that.
I just want to go back right before we ended, and I'm not trying to get you to
Alec thought they were in
elicit-
friendly
repeat
waters
this,
at
but
the end of that
Do you remember
interview.
when you asked, or do you remember when he told you, I know y'all got to look at me,
He never
and I've tried
denied
to have
it.
as little discussions
he
with
said
people
no.
that y'all are interviewing,
said
you
no.
know, with all this talk about that. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
He did say no. Do you think I did?
How did you take that statement to mean, his answer when he said that?
That he was trying to stay out of the investigation and let us do our work.
Okay. In early in the investigation, he asked you about,
Mustang Mickey, he's a lawyer.
Well,
He
that
knows
tree
better
going
than not
back
to
and forth
talk
and-
to the police, but he does.
was he clear on when that video was taken of
But
him
then
in
he
that
does.
clothes on the tree? Was he clear?
He didn't recall.
At this point, had you already talked to Blanca Simpson? Or had she been talked to reference?
She had been interviewed, yes.
Okay. And at some point after August 11, did Blanca System also provide some information in investigations about a conversation she had with the defendant, Alex Murdaugh?
Yes.
Okay. And was that concerning a shirt?
Yes, several months later, she provided information that she and Alec had had a conversation
Without, oh, go ahead.
about what he had been wearing that day when he left to go to work.
And just briefly going through the interview, you asked him about when Maggie was coming to Moselle and why. Did you have in this course of the investigation, did you have the emails from Blanca and or Maggie's phone to each other then?
No, I did not.
And early on in the interview, you asked him how long he'd stayed at his mama's house?
Yes, and he stated approximately 45 minutes.
45 minutes, an hour?
Yes, sir. 45 minutes to an hour, yes.
This is going to be a
And at
very
that
interesting
point in the
cross-examination.
investigation, had you talked to Michelle Shelley Smith about a conversation she had with Alex Murdaugh and the amount
Go
of time
back to
that
the podium, counsel.
he said he was there?
Shoot.
Yes, she had been interviewed by that time. Again, there were so many agents going out and doing interviews and reporting back to me.
Did you know?
But she stated that it was somewhere around 20 minutes. I don't have her report. I don't remember exactly what was said, but I know in our first interview, he had stated that it was around, he had spent about 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes with his mother.
And did your investigation reveal inconsistencies regarding what Mr. Murdaugh had told you?
Yes, I did.
And was that significant to you in your investigation?
It was, because it wasn't one inconsistency, it was several inconsistencies over a period of time that were repeated.
Yep.
Now, you asked him about a list of guns several times in these interviews. Did you ever get a list of guns from Alex Murdaugh?
I have not.
Between June
He's not
7th,
wearing his reading
2021 and
glasses
August
now, is
11th,
he?
2021, this interview, how many
There's
times
no
did he call
rocking?
you asking about the investigation?
We spoke approximately 5 or 6 times.
I imagine after you asked him if he killed his wife, he probably didn't want to call you back. But Corey Fleming knew the direction that was going. Corey Fleming, for all of his disbarredness, knew in that interview to say, yo, this is an interrogation. Maybe we shouldn't.
What were the inconsistencies
And
that
Alec
stood out in your mind?
Kept going.
The times, for one, from the first interview with where he went to his mother's, refer back to my notes.
Sir, would you like me to answer? I have a list of them. I have a list of the inconsistencies that have stood out to me. A list. Well, Alec, you don't have to put your glasses on just because. Oh, you got to write
Time
it.
in
I
his
get
mother's,
it.
is it
I
fair
can't
just to
see.
say that?
Oh my goodness. Counsel, let him answer.
So when the first interview in June, he stated that it was at his mother's for approximately, I'm sorry. First off, he stated for a little while. And then the second interview on June the 10th, it changed to, sorry, give me just a second.
And again, the defense will rebut this, talking about trauma, I imagine, and saying that there is a difference of, well, for a little while,
About 25 or 30 minutes.
25,
and then
30
the other-
minutes,
the
30,
third
45
interview, it
minutes.
was 45 minutes to an
that's
hour.
not really, they will explain that as memory.
And then some other inconsistencies is how much time he spent with Paul riding around. The first time it was
It's
45
more
minutes
telling to
an
me
hour.
that he tried to change the
next
story
time
of
he
Shelley
talked about riding on the farm anywhere from an hour and a half to 2
and
hours.
Blanca. Those inconsistencies and not being at the kennels, those
And then the
three
inconsistencies,
stand out more to me.
you know, I had the information from Rogan Gibson that he believed he heard Alec in the background. And on the 3 interviews, Alec had never indicated that he was at the kennels, that he was at the house either taking a nap,
Because you would know you were
playing on
there.
his phone or watching TV.
That is
and
a
this was
blatant
after
lie.
dinner.
That is a blatant lie, distancing himself from the crime scene.
Question.
That stands out more.
Was he ever inconsistent about whether or not he went down to the kennel after supper that last?
Yes.
Did he ever say he did go down there after dinner?
He never told me he went down there after dinner.
Never told you that.
He told me he took a nap and then he was at the house after dinner. He knew Maggie went to the kennels.
That part
At first, he
never
wasn't sure where
changed.
Paul went, but then he realized that Paul must have gone to the kennels because that's where he found them. But then he stayed
The
at the
kennel
house.
story never
took a nap.
changed. There's variance in time at Mom's. He went to Mom's. There's variance in time there. But there's never a variance on the kennels. And that's interesting, right? Because he did go to Mom's. He doesn't really know quite how long he stayed at Mom's. But going to Mom's is true. The timeline shifts, and that's either because he doesn't remember, or because he's terrible at time, or
Now,
because he's trying to shift the
There's
timeline
been
to
some
cover the murders.
discussion, and I think
that
your
is
testimony
reasonable
was he brought it up on the
explanations.
911 case about the boat case.
Yes, sir.
And that happened in what year?
February of 2019.
2019. And was that case null prosequi, dismissed by the Attorney General's office in the, after Paul's death? Can you prosecute a dead man?
No, sir, you cannot. And it's my understanding that the Attorney General's office null pros Paul's case in August of 2021.
So that case criminally, like we're in a criminal courtroom, was over.
Yes, sir.
Null pros is just a non-prosecution. So null pros is French. We always just called it a non-pros because it's declining to prosecute. It's
At
dismissing
some
the
point
case.
in
So they're not
2021, in the
prosecuting.
fall, did a financial investigation begin involving Alex Murdaugh?
Yes, sir.
Would it be fair to say that overlapped with this investigation?
It did.
Would it be fair to say those investigations fed off each other?
They did. From the information that I was learning from that investigation into the finances, it gave me additional people to consider, to look at, and consider even to look at Mr. Murdaugh as, a reason why or why not.
Were there individuals in the financial investigation that you also interviewed in reference to this investigation?
I did.
Did some of that information you learned from interviews or grand jury testimony?
This
Yes,
is
I
all
did.
leading.
Did you then follow up on some of that information?
Yes, I did.
And what did you follow up on? I think he was trying to clear Paul's name in the community more than just not having him criminally prosecuted.
And from
I do think that's true.
August, September of 21 to the summer of 22, were you, as a member of the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, working exclusively or primarily on this case?
That's correct.
And were search warrants still out there you were waiting on?
Yes, sir. There's a multitude of search warrants.
Yeah, we've heard.
And let's talk just a moment, and I'm about through about the phones if we could.
Okay.
You, law enforcement, got Maggie Murdaugh's phone when? I mean, when did you actually take physical custody of it?
Maggie Murdaugh's phone was recovered on June 8th, 2021 on the side of Moselle Road.
And what, were you able to do you, law enforcement, you know what I'm talking about, able to get how much information did you get from Maggie's phone? In this
We don't know what you're talking about. You know what I'm
The
talking about.
family
It's a
gave us,
terrible
I
question.
believe it actually came from Alec or either Buster.
No,
but
y'all
we
know what it is.
Got access to her phone
No.
via her password. So we were able to do a full extraction from her phone.
Full extraction?
Yes, sir.
Oh, is
And
no
some of that
prosequi
is
Latin?
included in the
I mean, that
timeline
makes
that's already
sense.
been entered. It's going to be entered by Mr. Waters
Most
in a
of
little
it's
bit,
Latin.
right?
Yes, sir.
Literally always just called it a no
Full
pros.
extraction.
Full extraction.
Not
Now-
fancy.
How about Alex's phone? Was it initially taken on June 7th or June 8th?
Always.
It was not taken on June 7th or June 8th. We got an extraction on June 10th when we met for our second interview. But that, again, that was just a logical extraction, not a full extraction.
Which was I don't really understand, but that's the surface, right? You
That's just
basically
the
get
surface.
Off the top, all right. Did you ever get that phone back?
In September, yes, sir.
September. And at that point, was further information attempted to be gathered from Alex Murdaugh's phone?
Yes, sir.
And how successful was that?
Being the time difference between June and September, a lot of the earlier on information had been overwritten. It's just the way the computers work. You have to clear out memory to make room for new memory. So some information had been not erased, but cached out.
Was gone.
So we were able to gain
Lost.
some information
Some information was lost.
from the logical in June and compare it to the full extraction that we got in September.
Because y'all didn't treat him as a suspect back in
And were
June.
you able to determine what had been erased also?
I think this is
There
their
were some phone
timeline
calls that
expert.
had been erased, yes.
Now, let's talk about Paul's phone. And to go back in the interview just very briefly on Paul's phone,
This is the lead investigating officer, so he's tying things together, or should be. He might not be tying things together for you. But they didn't treat Alec as a suspect early on.
sorry, Judge, 1 second, I apologize.
And that's why you did not beg our indulgence, counsel. We beg your indulgence to stay at the podium. But that's why things were overwritten and cashed out. That's not a fault to Alec. That's not Alec trying to hide things. He did give SLED his phone the day his dad died on June 10th. So that's not on Alec. That's on SLED.
You would ask him when he turned Paul over and his cell phone popped out. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And what's his answer just a little while ago? I don't know. I mean, when I went up to him, the phone
Also, they
came
never
out, but I don't
found
remember
his
having any intentions of
burner
doing
that he would
anything
call
with
Chris
the phone.
Wilson from. So there's
Well, the
that.
first interview, he stated that the phone popped out and that he picked it up and thought about doing something with it, thought better of it and put it back down.
In this interview, he said it came out, right?
Yes.
Now, Paul's phone, did y'all attempt to do, so you had it from June 7th until today?
Yes.
Okay. Were you able to do a full extraction on Paul's phone?
We were able to finally do a full extraction in March of 2022.
Okay, March of 2022.
Yes, sir.
What, if any, information came as a result of that extraction after March of 2022?
The kennel video.
I now believe that the "they did him so
That
bad"
we've all
statement is
seen, yeah.
about SLED's
The
investigation.
The kennel video where Paul is videotaping the chocolate lab, and you can hear Maggie and Paul and Alec in there. And that video is time-stamped at 8:44.
Say it again?
8:44 p.m.
And until that day,
Why don't you just get a fucking chart
if you don't,
and put
that's
the
fine.
times on them?
Okay, now,
I believe I got the information on April 8th of 2022.
until that day, and it was extracted, to your knowledge, did anybody else in the world know that was on there except Paul?
Nobody, to my knowledge.
All they knew was that Nolan had heard Alec in the background when he was on the phone with Paul. Valerie S., I apologize for you
Up until
too.
this
I
past.
have no control
Well,
over the things that they
Was
do.
information in this investigation gathered up through last weekend?
Yes, it is.
And what was that?
The General Motors information from Alex's 2021 Suburban.
So SLED from June 7th in combinations with the local.
Oh, sorry, Rogan, not Nolan. You're
feds
right.
have been investigating this case nonstop.
That is
Sorry,
correct.
Chad. Y'all, I was being sarcastic when I said the "I did him so bad" is about SLED's investigation. I don't think highly of SLED's investigation. I think they were afraid of Alec, so I was being sarcastic when I said it's so bad they did him so bad. This how I feel about this investigation.
Paul's shoes moving into evidence 103. I don't believe there's an objection to that. Did they talk about
They
that?
were afraid, it seems, of Alec, and the solicitor's office is Alec's buddies. So the solicitor's office in charge of this investigation at the beginning are buddies of Alec. So I was being sarcastic. I didn't mean to confuse everybody. I'm so put out, I realize that the difference in my voice between sarcasm and not sarcasm is probably not that much right now, because there is supposed to be a timeline and I'm still waiting for a timeline, and this attorney's jumping around like House of Pain and then walking all over the damn courtroom, and it is so disorganized that it is very hard to follow. And it's just frustrating to watch. I like to watch great cases. And even when we get frustrated with Depp v. Heard, it was presented very linearly. And you could follow. The Depp v. Heard case, you could follow. You could follow the Brooks case. This case is so hard to follow that I am just annoyed as hell.
36 without objection.
Oh, we are in the House of Pain watching this case. It's just a mess. And the whole thing of it, Jim Griffin being so inextricably intertwined, the privilege parade of the, 25 lawyers in the House and nobody conducting a fucking search warrant. Ugh.
I don't believe I asked you this, but for the couple of questions.
Pick one and go with
Any
it.
other credible leads that you've investigated that led you to anybody else beside Alex Murdaugh?
Not credible, no, sir.
Did you follow up with every lead that came in on this case, social media or otherwise?
Yes, we did.
All the SLED did?
Yes, sir. And
Locals?
Collin County as well, yes.
Law enforcement really worked together on this case, didn't it?
Yes, we did.
And is the individual that you took this statement from on August 11th of 2021 in the courtroom?
Yes, he is.
Sitting between Mr. Harpootlian and Mr. Griffin?
Counsel!
Yes, sir, in a blue blazer and white shirt.
That's completely inappropriate.
That's all we have this time. Thank
It's
you.
not going to matter, but that's completely
Cross-examination.
inappropriate. He can't say sitting right over there in between these two attorneys, that's the defendant, correct? No, you can't make the ID. It's just sloppy. It doesn't matter. This defendant's been ID'd a million times and he's on video in those interviews, but it's just so sloppy. All right, get me the cross-examination. I'm
afternoon,
ready
sir.
for this. Let's see it, Jim. Let's ask them all about their investigation and the search warrants that weren't served. Let's hear about all of it. Tell us everything, Jim. I'm actually really looking forward to this cross, and I hope there's another witness that's going to do a timeline, because this can't be the timeline witness, so they usually use the investigating officer as the timeline witness.
You explain, and I think Agent Croft explained about sort of the investigative
The
circle.
interview was interesting, but the rest of
Yes,
it's
sir.
like,
And I think you talked to Alec about that on the video, that he is in the circle.
I have comfort
Yes, sir.
cheese.
And he was in the circle from the moment he called 911, correct?
I would say yes.
And
You'd
no one
agree,
had
right?
to
You'd agree with me that
give
there were
you
no
any
other suspects,
lead
right?
to put him in the circle, right?
No, sir. He called 911. He's the one who discovered him. He's closest in relation to him.
So when you're asked about, were you given any other credible leads except the one that led to Alec Murdaugh? I mean,
Alec
he
Murdaugh
was there
led to Alec Murdaugh.
from the moment he called 911.
Yes, sir.
And what has happened over the last
Y'all
year and a
decided
half,
it was
2
him and then
years
tried to
is,
find evidence to support
as you
it?
explained, you've been
What
unable
happened?
to get him out of the circle. Isn't that right?
That is correct.
So if someone's in the circle,
Oh, he's arguing to the jury. Look at him.
they end up sitting over there where he is today. That's what happens. Isn't that right?
As long as there's credible evidence to keep them in that circle, yes.
I'm eating cheese.
Well, we're going to get to that.
These are Sargento cheese sticks. Keeping you in the snack. Why is he yelling? He's arguing to
Here.
the jury. He's arguing to the jury that they had
SLED
a rush to
failed
judgment. They
to
put
take
him in the
immediate
circle,
steps.
and then they tried
It's
to
not all
support
SLED.
their conclusion.
SLED and the Cullinan County
arguing.
Sheriff's Department failed to take immediate steps to preserve evidence that could possibly exclude Alec Murdaugh from that circle.
Y'all done fucked up,
Do you
right?
agree with that?
No.
I don't think it was a failure, no, sir.
You're not going to agree with that.
Well, let's get this right. Your investigation, as I understand it, leads you to conclude that Paul and Maggie were murdered sometime between 8:50 p.m. on June the 7th and 9:06 p.m., correct?
Yes, sir.
And whoever murdered Maggie and Paul would, at a
Listen to the
minimum,
yes,
have in their
sir.
possession an
Just give
AR-15
him a
style
yes.
assault rifle and a 12-gauge shotgun, correct?
Not unless they got rid of it.
Well, the moment they were murdered,
Yes.
someone had to have, one person or two
Jim
people
is
had to have
mad.
murder weapons, right?
Yes.
Paul was murdered with a 12-gauge, right?
Yes, sir.
You would agree then that the murderer had a 12-gauge shotgun.
Yes.
You would agree that the murderer had some AR-15 style assault weapon that killed Maggie, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you would agree at the time they were murdered, they would have those weapons.
Yes.
And would you agree that whoever murdered Maggie and Paul would likely have blood and biological material on them following the shotgun blast that essentially blew Paul's brains out of his head?
Oh, Jesus.
They would have some, yes.
And on the night of June the 7th, you said it was after midnight, so it would go early morning hours, but 1 a.m. on June the 8th, you interviewed Alec, and he told you that he had left Moselle sometime between 9 and 9:10 to check on his mother. Is that right?
That is correct.
And now we know it's
So if
9:06.
Alex was the perpetrator, as alleged,
They're going to use this
he would have had
witness to
to
show that
brutally
the
murder his wife and
timeline's
son sometime after
ridiculous.
8:50 p.m. and 9:06, dispose of the murder weapons either somewhere on the Moselle property, within the Moselle residence, along the drive to Alameda, or at his mother's residence or property at Alameda. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And then he would have to get clean. And then he would have to ditch the clothes.
Now,
Good use of this witness.
immediately when law enforcement arrived, they secured the
Oh, he's
the
allowed to
immediate
leave.
murder scene
This is Cross.
That is my understanding, yes.
down at the kennels. And they eventually thoroughly searched the Moselle residence. There was search of the Moselle residence the next day, correct?
That is correct.
If
You know what
I'm
time
Jim-
that was? Early afternoon, late morning?
If I'm Jim, I wouldn't touch it at all.
That's approximate time, yes.
I would hammer on the timeline.
And
They didn't search Moselle till the next day.
no murder weapons were found in the residence, is that correct?
That is correct.
After Blanca
And
came.
no murder weapons were found on the property at Moselle, is that correct?
That is correct.
And
I mean, searched.
was a search of the route between
Kinda.
Moselle and Alameda ever done?
It wasn't walked from Moselle to Alameda, but it was driven several times.
You can't see shit in the bushes if you're
And
driving
you didn't
it.
find any weapons there, correct?
No, sir.
And was a search of the waterways along the route done between
Good
Moselle
questions.
and Alameda?
Most waterways, yes.
Excuse me?
Most waterways, I don't know if every single one was searched, but there were several waterways searched.
Sir, it's very wet. We searched the wet
Now, we
things.
know from the General Motors OnStar
When
data
does-
that was delivered during the middle of this trial that Alec did not stop from the moment he left Moselle to drive to Alameda. Is that
Objection
correct?
assumes facts, not in
You've reviewed
evidence.
that.
Yes.
We haven't
There's no
heard that data
detours
yet.
along the way, correct?
No, sir.
That's good evidence for the defense. He didn't
And you
stop along the
never
way.
searched
Might have slowed down.
the Alameda property for any signs of
Bloody
murder
clothes.
evidence, guns, bloody clothes, or anything.
This investigator
until
has the same
well
look that
after
Alec has.
sometime
They
in
look
mid to
exactly
late
the same in
September,
this
is that
moment. They're
correct?
both like,
That is
fuck.
correct.
You could have searched Alameda that night,
Coulda. Didn't.
correct?
If I had probable cause to, yes, sir.
Well, was anybody denying consent to search?
Good
When I
question,
say
Jim.
anybody, well, Alec Murdaugh gave you carte blanche consent to search anywhere in those properties, did he
Yes,
not?
yes, he did.
And John Marvin was assisting.
Y'all didn't take
SLED
him up
and
on it.
Facilitating wherever you wanted to look.
The brother was
Wasn't he doing that?
assisting
He
SLED.
was, but the night of June 7th, even though Alec was in the circle, basically by default because of his close relationship with the victims and finding them,
We honestly didn't think he did
I
it.
did not consider him the main suspect or the only suspect because I had no probable cause and no evidence to
We didn't think
support
he did it at all.
that he killed his wife and son.
We didn't think he did it. We didn't think he could
Well,
do it.
If a thorough, tight, quick, prompt investigation had been taken of the Moselle property, the route to Alameda and the Alameda property, that could have possibly excluded Alec from this circle, couldn't it? If you found no evidence of guns, bloody clothes,
It's a good
or
argument.
anything, right?
If you know what you're looking for and where to look, and have some
guns.
type of information that would lead you to that area, yes.
Jim's asking, you
And
weren't
that
trying to
opportunity was
exclude
missed.
him.
Would you agree with that?
Yep.
I wouldn't say it was missed because
Sir.
it wasn't known about, other than, several hours later when we get to the bodies and
We didn't
there are no
perceive the opportunity.
weapons found. It wasn't until the casings and the shot shells were recovered that I actually knew what the calibers were.
No, I get, okay. It's pretty clear the night of the murders, Colleton County Sheriff's deputies on the scene recognized the shell casings as being 300 blackouts.
They sure
correct?
did.
That is what they told me,
Okay,
but I want to verify for myself.
right.
What about the rush to judgment? Jim's arguing that they
And-
didn't even bother doing an investigation because they were sure it was
By
him.
6, 7,
I
8
think.
o'clock the next morning on June the 8th,
I'm getting to they wanted it not to be him, so they
Rogan
didn't search
Gibson
too
had been
hard.
interviewed where he said, I thought I heard Alec Murdaugh's voice in the background, right?
Yes, sir.
Didn't think
And
he was a
Alec had
suspect
told you
then.
that he left Moselle and gone to Alameda, right?
Yes.
And so as of the late morning of June the 8th, well, let me back up. That first interview with Alec, you state that he did not inform you that he was down at the kennels after dinner, right?
That is correct. He
And
said
you get information from Rogan Gibson that contradicted that.
yes.
And Alec Murdaugh is in the middle of the circle on the morning of June the 8th.
Karen,
Well, I
that's
still
not
needed to build
uncommon
a timeline.
in an active crime scene.
Because
Oh, that was a
speaking
yes or no
with
question,
Alec,
sir. You should answer it that
he
way.
was giving me some times, and I
He
needed
does
to
not
build
like
that
this
timeline.
cross-examination.
And not having that coupled
That's not
with
uncommon. That it can take
Rogan's
hours
statement that he was
to take
100% sure he was on the
victims
phone
out of
call.
the crime scene.
He was 100% sure that he heard Maggie. He was only 99% sure, even though it's a great percentage. He said he was 99% sure it was Alec. I needed to gather some more information before I just go back and confront Alec on that.
Sure. Well, tell me what the thought process was behind searching the Moselle residence. What were you looking for?
Any types of ammunition. It was 300 blackout. We had the 12 gauge shot shells. We know that it's hunting's
agree,
going
so I
on.
didn't think he
Hunting
was
goes
a,
on out there of all types. In the
suspect at
shed,
this
there was
point.
some additional ammunition that was in a bucket. Needed to see what type of ammunition or firearms were in the house to try to get documentation of what was missing, what was there.
And why was Agent McAllister looking at tubs and in the drains? For guns?
Why was she?
Yeah.
You'll have to ask her. I wasn't there.
I mean, it's obvious that you were searching to see if there any evidence of
she wasn't
blood
really
in the house.
looking.
You'd want to do that, right?
Yes.
She was kind
Because-
of peeking.
Alex in the circle, and he had been to the house.
Yes, sir.
Alex in the circle, and he'd been to Alameda, right?
Yes, sir.
You
No
didn't
one went to
search.
Alameda to look for guns or blood
Nope.
or bloody clothes, did they?
Not
didn't.
that day, no, sir.
And of course, this
Would you
officer
agree
saying there
that
was no
an
probable.
opportunity missed?
Yes.
For Almeida, yes.
He's saying there was no probable cause, but they were saying we gave you consent
Now-
to search. So the consent to search will work in the defense's favor, I think, a bit here, where they can say it doesn't matter if you had probable
Talk
cause.
about
We
the
told
murder
you you
weapons.
could. We wanted to
would
find the
expect
murderers.
that the murder weapons would also have on them, at least the shotgun, the 12 gauge that killed Paul, would have some biological material, blood on the shotgun. Fair enough.
Fair enough.
And the assault weapon
Oh, Linda, I hope he says that.
and the shotgun would have
I want to hear it.
GSR on it, would it not?
Yes.
And if someone were transporting shotgun with blood on it and a rifle with GSR on it, and you got their vehicle, you would look for signs of that in the vehicle, would you not?
Yes.
And that was done here, was it not?
It was done on Suburban and the Mercedes, yes.
Excuse me?
It was done on the Suburban and the Mercedes, yes.
Yeah, and so there's nothing in the Suburban, there's no blood in the back where people would possibly carry guns. And when I say the back, I'm talking the back.
Cargo area,
Yeah.
yes.
There's no evidence of blood back there, right?
No, sir.
No evidence of GSR back there, was there?
No, sir.
There's no evidence of blood or GSR in the second or third seats, correct?
No, sir.
And the only GSR found in the Suburban was one speck on a seat belt buckle, right?
That is correct.
And there was one drip of blood confirmed on the steering wheel that comes back with Maggie's DNA. Is that right?
Yes.
And we know from the
One drip of blood.
General Motors stuff we just got during the trial that Suburban never went down to the kennels until after Alec came back from Alameda. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Wait, what? That's
So
new information.
Can we rule out that Alec put any guns from the murder in the back of the Suburban?
I don't think you can.
Unless it was wrapped in something.
Okay. And have you found anything it was wrapped in?
We have a blue raincoat that
Might-
has numerous
might-
particles of GSR in it.
Might
Let's
been.
talk about that blue raincoat for a second.
Certainly.
Might been.
You developed information about a blue tarp from interviewing or
So
SLED
did he
agents
walk to
interviewing
the kennels?
Shelley Smith. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you're doing a search sometime in September at Alameda for this blue tarp,
Oh yeah,
find
Maggie's
a blue
blood
rain
on the
jacket
steering wheel of his work
rolled up
car
in a closet,
matters.
right?
Well,
I believe it was balled up, yes, sir.
Maggie's DNA
say
in
balled
blood.
up, and you were there during the search, right?
Yes, sir.
And you also found a tarp somewhere else on the property.
Why
right?
is one drip of Maggie's
Excuse
blood
me,
being
in the
undermined?
attic
Because
or
it's the
somewhere?
defense.
Yes, sir. It was on the second floor, folded up in a tote in a closet.
And the
with other
prosecution
things on
hasn't
top
brought
of
it
the
up
tote.
again.
And so this blue rain jacket, you showed it to Shelley Smith, didn't you? And say, is this what you were talking about?
I showed her a picture.
You showed a picture to Shelley Smith?
I showed a picture to Shelley Smith to
That's what
ask her
Shelley
if
Smith
it was
said.
the similar color.
We were
And
all.
when did you show Shelley Smith that picture?
He showed her a picture of it
I
in
believe it
the
was last month.
bottom of the closet.
Last month. So was it during trial?
No, sir.
Is it preparing for trial?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
She said she saw the picture of it down in the
But you're
bottom of
not
the closet.
shown her that before Alec Murdaugh had been indicted for murder, right?
No, sir.
But you had shown that blue rain jacket to a number of people to see if they recognized it.
I showed it to family members to see if they recognized it as being Alec, Maggie, Paul's, Buster's, or anybody else in the family.
That's
And
fair.
not a single family member recognized that blue rain jacket.
No, they did not.
Where did it come from?
And Shelley Smith described the tarp as she saw it laying out on Ms. Libby's retirement rocking chair, and it was a tarp, right?
She told me that it was a blue vinyl type looking tarp
Yeah.
type material.
That raincoat looks
And that
tarpy.
Alec came in and it was folded up or balled up in his
Binger
arms.
for that. That looks
And then after
tarpy.
he left, she noticed it laying on the chair.
And so you showed her a picture
That's
of
not
the
an
balled up rain
inconsistency.
jacket and said, is it this color? Is that what you did?
I asked her, I knew she wasn't going to be able to identify the raincoat because the picture I showed her was it from our lab where it's opened up and spread out. And she's telling me that it was balled up. So I know she's not going to be able to identify the raincoat, but she can at least identify or attempt to identify the color.
This
I mean,
thing in
you
this
read-
closet, is
read
that what you
reports
saw?
of
And
her
she said
interview and
yes.
probably saw her entire interview by video, did you not?
Yes.
And you understand that she said she saw that thing 2 times, right?
I don't remember her saying that.
I don't recall that. So.
You don't recall her?
Well, the 2 times with Alec coming in with it and then seeing it on the chair.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And it wasn't balled up when she saw it on the chair.
Oh, that's a
not the
tricky
report you
question,
received,
Jim.
right?
No, but it also wasn't spread out, opened up like it was in the picture that I showed her.
It's probably Jim's best cross-examination to
She
date.
didn't tell you it was spread out, opened up on the retirement chair?
She told me it was laid across the chair, is the information that I received.
Wasn't balled up though, right?
No, sir.
Yeah, you didn't show her a picture of the rain jacket, right?
I did show her a picture of the rain jacket.
As balled up.
No, sir.
You
Well-
showed her a picture of the rain jacket that was open.
No. No. He showed
I
her a
believe I
picture.
showed it. I'm not sure. I know I showed her the picture of it opened up to see if she recognized the color.
Wait, that's not what you just said, though. What you said is you showed her the one where it
I
was
think the
balled up.
jury will remember what she testified about, but,
Ew!
Sustained.
and you know that
Don't do that.
that rain jacket did not have any blood. I mean, it tested for blood.
Tested
There's
it for
no blood on it,
everything.
right?
I'm aware of that, yes, sir.
They really
And if
tried with the ring coat.
Someone had wrapped up shotgun, killing Paul, in that rain jacket. You expect to find blood, would you not?
At least DNA, yes.
Well, there's no
You
DNA
would
either,
think-
right?
Yes.
So there's no DNA and no blood in that rain jacket, right?
There's no DNA, and yes.
And you know it was tested with LCV and there was no presumptive sign of blood there, right?
Correct.
So are you willing to agree that it doesn't look like that rain jacket was used to carry any murder weapons on the night of June the 7th?
They had weapons in them. I would believe that they had weapons in them at some time because there was GSR in them.
Yeah.
At
And
some
we
time.
don't know if that was 5 years ago,
Say bo whoop.
3 years ago, 1 year ago, do we?
Say bo whoop.
Correct.
We do know from folks working on the investigation that you're leading, is there's no blood or no
Oh, I'm
DNA in
just
that
not
rain jacket.
sure is a terrible answer for the lead investigator in a
And you know
high-profile
from your
double homicide
experience
case.
That there would
Absolutely.
be blood on the shotgun, and if you're wrapping it up in that jacket, you're gonna have blood on the jacket. Right?
Well, you would believe that there would be blood or DNA on the barrel of the shotgun, but until you actually have it to test it, I can't sit here and say, yes, it would be there.
But if you wipe off the blood and the DNA or whatever from the shotgun, you would wipe off the
And we know
GSR
it
too.
wasn't cleaned off because
It's
it
a
had
good
been
argument
washed off.
for Jim.
The GSR would have been washed off, correct?
Correct?
If they wipe the exterior of the barrel for blood or DNA, but it still doesn't wipe off the particles that are in the barrel that could fall down and out.
All right.
Jim's like, sure, buddy. It's a good point for Jim.
And let's talk about washdown. Did you notice any wet spots in the back of the Suburban?
No, sir.
You notice any wet spots in the back seat of the Suburban?
No, sir.
Did it look like the Suburban, anything wet had been placed in the Suburban?
No, sir.
The problem is, Jim is questioning doubt. And well, we can sit here and go, well, it could have been this, it could have been that. The
And if-
prosecution has to prove this or
Alec
that.
Murdaugh
and they
had
haven't.
cleaned up after committing these horrendous murders. As wouldn't you expect to find some trace evidence of blood somewhere in the house, if that's where it occurred?
If he cleaned up in the house, yes.
And did you find any trace evidence of blood in the house indicated Alec had cleaned up?
If he cleaned up in the house, no.
Blanca said she cleaned up.
So the answer is no, you didn't find any trace evidence of blood in the house. Is that correct?
No, sir.
That's not correct?
There was no trace evidence of blood found in the house, no.
Thank you.
That would be yes.
Did you find any blood on the carpet, floors, or anywhere
And
throughout the house?
answering that way makes
sir.
him look evasive. When he's like, blah, 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 no, but it should be a yes.
Now let's talk about Alec's clothes on
Do you think the jury's going to like this
July
witness?
7th,
Or do we get to this point where the jury's
2021,
like, bro, what did you
obtained
do?
a Snapchat video of Alex in khakis and this short-sleeved dress shirt.
Alex
taken
just
by
eating
Paul
whatever at the
sometime on
table.
June the
It's so
7th. Is that
strange.
correct?
I did not receive it on June the 7th, but I did receive it, yes.
Do you have notice when you received it?
There was a Snapchat, well, it was an extraction from his phone, from Paul's phone, and then we did a search warrant to Snapchat to get that video.
And you got the video in early July 2021?
I believe that's when we got it back.
juries tend to hold law enforcement witnesses to a different standard.
And they
So
it
even
may
if
not
Jim
be
is
in your-
asking his
in your
questions
narrative, your case management notes. but-
in a very specific and kind of double negative
I
way.
don't see it indicated
This
in my
witness
notes,
has to
but
pause and
I know
answer
I
them
did not
well.
get that Snapchat video the night of June the 7th or the early morning hours of June the 8th.
They didn't get the
No, that's
Snapchat
in
video until they
July.
cracked.
Okay.
Is it- can
We
you
got
recall-
it a couple weeks after, yes.
They got it when
so
they got
by
into
early
Paul's
July,
phone.
you had the Snapchat video.
Yes.
And it's in the evidence as Exhibit 306. Will you please just pull it up, Doug, and let's freeze it, stop it right there. Now, is this the same video that you showed
Ooh,
Alec
the shoes.
during the August 11th,
Those shoes look more
2021
cloth-like.
interview?
Originally, I thought they were kind of leather, but those look more
jury and all of
cloth-like.
us just watched.
Are those
It appears to be the
Sperry's?
same one, yes.
I mean, and you're pointing
Those
out
the
to
shoes that Blanca never
Alec
saw
in that
again?
interview, you know, here's a picture of you in these clothes, and when did you change? That was your question, right?
Yes,
That's
sir.
the Columbia-style
And his
shirt.
answer was, I don't really remember when I changed. Is that right?
That is correct.
And does looks like he's wearing khaki pants, right?
Yes.
And it looks like a dress shirt. And I think that's what you called it in the interview. Is that right?
Yes.
Would you agree it looks like a blue dress shirt?
It's a light blue, yes.
Okay. And
Blue
you
or
agree that
seafoam.
on August the 11th, at the conclusion of the interview, you essentially confronted him. Did you kill Maggie? Did you kill Paul? And he asked, am I a suspect? That happened on August 11th. Is that right?
Yes, it did.
And you said, I got to go where the evidence leads me. Is that
Yes.
right? And you testified here today that on that date, Alec Murdaugh was the one and only suspect.
He was the only known suspect at that time, yes.
And I think you testified that that you had interviewed Blanca, or you got some information from Blanca, but where Blanca had talked about a conversation she had with Alec after this interview on August 11th.
It was sometime later, yes.
And Alec was asking during this conversation with Blanca,
Here, that is hearsay.
what do you remember I'm wearing?
Nature for the objection.
He's going to object to
State
hearsay.
the sweet self-serving hearsay it calls for. He's asking him what the defendant said.
Yep.
Sustained.
He can't introduce the defendant's statements. Only the prosecution can. He chooses his objections, and it takes a while. But the jury's heard the point. The point is, he talked to Blanca after this interview was.
You learned in the course of your investigation that after you confronted Alec as being suspect and showing him this video, that he questioned Blanca about what he was wearing that day. Is that fair?
Yes.
That was the point Jim needed to get in, not the statement. Because they want to be able to argue that he wasn't trying to change Blanca's mind. He was trying to confirm because he couldn't remember because he's traumatized.
Up until August 11th,
Don't you get it?
Alec had given you carte blanche to search anywhere, anytime on any property he had. Is that right?
That is correct.
And on August 11th, he was encouraging him to try to get information from General Motors, and he would do whatever he could to facilitate that exchange.
Tell
right?
me about General
Yes.
Motors.
And up until
'Cause what the
August
fuck?
11th, I mean, you'd reached out to Alec, me, John Marvin, whenever you need to go on property to do anything, and you always got consent, correct?
That is correct.
And anything you asked, for the most part, it was provided.
Yes.
At no time prior to August the 11th, 2021, did you ask Alec Murdaugh, where's that blue shirt? Where are those khaki pants? Where are those shoes? Did you?
No, sir, I did not.
And you have never asked him for that blue shirt, those tan shoes, and those khaki pants, have you?
No, sir.
Does he know where they are?
And
Jim,
the
does he
reason you
know?
didn't, because you weren't concerned about those clothes. Your investigation has been focused
question.
since
On the white shirt.
early June on the T-shirt he was wearing,
And the
the
pants.
shorts he was wearing, and the shoes he was wearing at the time he called 911, right?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Was that an error? Also, yes.
And you were actively investigating whether or not the T-shirt had evidence of high-velocity blood spatter, which you would expect to find on someone who was shooting Paul.
It's a good
Back
point.
spatter, yes.
Back spatter.
Not high velocity blood spatter.
And
That
your
is him
agency,
saying, well,
in
counsel,
fact,
not
engaged an
exactly.
expert out of state
It's not a clip.
to give his assessment on whether there was
Ooh,
high-velocity back spatter on the T-shirt
Jim taunting the
shorts,
prosecution.
or any part of the clothing. Right?
Okay, Jim.
Yes, we asked an individual to examine it to look for back spatter.
And that was after it had been sprayed with, the shirt had been sprayed with LCV to see if there was any indication of blood on the shirt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And I noticed that you opened up in these exhibit boxes. I mean, you opened up, pulled out Alec's shoes, you pulled out Alec's shorts. Mr. Meadows paraded shorts around the courtroom. But you didn't pull out the shirt.
He's trying to be funny.
No, sir.
Because the shirt is
Defense
turned
is
purple
taken-
completely, has it not?
Defense is taking
Yes.
some
Okay, and that was from treating
pokes
it
at
with
the
this
prosecution
LCV.
in this.
That is correct.
Okay,
That is my understanding.
right. Now, when you presented this case to the
This is on the razor's
Collins
edge of
County
outside the
grand
scope,
jury
but they're
to
not going
obtain
to
a
object to
true
it.
bill
It
indictment,
makes it look like they're hiding
you
something.
testified under oath that an expert had found multiple.
Is he talking about grand jury presentation? Carlton County, that's, you can't, it's not a record of a county grand jury.
Counsel, you need a legal grounds for your objection, and this is improper impeachment. The legal grounds is improper impeachment
I didn't hear the complete question.
because he's going to read in shit
Sounds
he can't read
objectionable,
in.
but let me hear the question.
Well, let me lay a foundation.
No,
Mr.
that's improper
excuse me.
impeachment. That's the legal grounds you're looking
Agent
for,
Owen,
counsel. Don't sit down
Before
yet.
you testified before the Collins County grand jury, you prepared an outline of your presentation, did you not?
I did.
And in that outline, you identified essentially a
prosecutor's gonna
narrative
get
of
big
what you were
mad
going
real
to tell
quick.
the grand jury, correct?
Yes.
And did you follow that narrative?
For the most part, yes.
And in that narrative, didn't you
Yep.
state that an expert found multiple particles of blood spatter on the
Counsel.
shoulders and front of Alec's
Hey.
shirt?
Counsel,
Is that correct?
where?
Yes.
That's
And is that what
improper
you told the
impeachment.
Collins County grand jury?
Yes.
Oh, the defense is just kind of slipping
However,
it in without
SLED.
even asking. They're just
And this expert out in Oklahoma overlooked his Agent Zapata's confirmatory
No one
blood
objected.
testing, about which he testified earlier in this trial, that out of 74 cuttings from Alec's T-shirt, 0 tested positive for human blood.
wow.
Completely overlooked the fact that when you did human tracing test to confirm whether it's blood, it came up negative. And wasn't that overlooked?
I had never seen that
They're
report.
just allowing that in.
Well, when did you see the report?
Woo.
November of 2022.
They don't give a shit that the
After Alec had been
prosecution's not
indicted?
bringing in
And
the
months
blood
from
spatter
trial, is
expert.
that
They're
right?
just going to
Yes.
improperly impeach him. Okay, Jim. Okay. Just, oh. I don't think the prosecution cares. I really don't. The defense has gotten
Now,
in
a couple of things.
so
You,
much that's objectionable,
talked
but
about-
so has the prosecution. It's happened both ways.
on the tape that we just saw, when you interviewed Alec,
Wow. That was strange.
told him
I kind of,
that
I don't know. That,
there's no unknown DNA taken from the crime
Okay.
scene. Do you remember that on the tape?
At that time, yes.
Making that representation?
Yes.
That was August the 11th,
Yes, sir.
2021?
he didn't lie to the grand jury. They're just not bringing that expert in because that
August
expert
11th,
sucks.
2021. Did you know that there was
He told the grand jury what the
unknown
expert
DNA
said. But the
of a
expert
male
is not a good
un-
expert.
obtained from Maggie's fingernail clipping?
That wasn't
I
unknown.
believe what it was explained to me is there was one allele under the fingernail, which is not enough for confirmatory test on the DNA.
So that's not unknown.
Okay.
That's too little.
What did you hear in court? There are 3 alleles?
I think she said 4. This case makes me want a manicure.
I heard that it was one.
Not what she testified, by the way.
And another thing, what was tested for DNA? Do you remember?
I do not have that report in front of me, so I'm not going to attempt to speak on that right now.
Yes, sir. Well,
There was a multitude of items, I know that.
That's
Well,
not my job,
I mean-
sir.
let's start with Alec's shirt was tested
The
for DNA, was
prosecution
it
did
not?
ask about
Yes.
DNA, so this is not outside the scope of direct.
Maggie's clothes were not tested for DNA, were they?
No, they were not.
Paul's clothes were not tested for DNA, were they?
No, they were not.
Now, in your
The
communication
DNA
with
expert
Mr.
explained all of that.
Bevel out in Oklahoma, at one point in time, he asked you to look into whether
Oh, they want to talk about this blood spatter
blood
so
mark in
bad.
Paul's pocket and whether there was a matching blood mark on the outside of Paul's pocket. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
Any DNA testing done of that area?
No, sir.
But Alec's shirt was DNA tested front and back, right?
Correct.
But Alec wasn't the victim of any crime on the night of June the 7th, was he?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So why are you testing Alex Murdaugh's clothes for DNA? What are you expecting to find?
Well,
Evidence to include or exclude him.
that's a fair answer.
Okay,
That's the
so
truth.
he had told you that he had gone up to the bodies of Paul and Maggie, right?
Yes.
He was too clean.
And what DNA result would have excluded him?
Well, sorry, the lack of any other DNA would have excluded him.
All right, so you didn't find any other DNA except, I guess, Nolan Tootin when he hugged him that night, right?
Correct.
So did that exclude him?
Well, the shirt wasn't our only piece of evidence.
Well, the shorts. Did you find any?
The shorts weren't our only piece of evidence.
I'm trying to focus on DNA.
Okay.
I mean, so the DNA
Answer the question you're being asked, is what he's saying.
didn't really add much whatsoever. Is that correct?
Correct.
In fact, it certainly support conclusion that he could not have been wearing those clothes at the time Paul was murdered, right?
That's a distinct possibility, yes.
Well, I mean, we already talked about, and the jury's already seen how gruesome Paul's injuries were. They've seen the blood in the feed room, and they've seen everything that
Yep.
is unimaginable.
You've traumatized the jury.
There was, and the jury's already seen how gruesome Paul's injuries were.
Glitch in the
They've seen
matrix.
the blood in the feed room, and they've seen everything that is unimaginable. There was no DNA found on Alec's shirt from Paul, was there?
There was.
Except for the
There,
little piece
there,
down
there
the
was
hem.
some DNA of Paul on that shirt, yes.
There's just a little piece at the hem, is that right?
I believe there was one other spot, but yes.
In your outline to the Collin County Grand Jury, it indicates on page 18 that you found DNA in the areas of spatter that were identified belonging to Alec, Maggie, and Paul. Do you remember that?
This is trying to impeach him with
Yes.
prior
And that was from the report that I had in my possession.
testimony.
And was that accurate?
Now that I have that hemotrace report, the hemotrace indicates the parts that she tested, no human blood was found.
So you didn't know at the time, but
They're
you know
trying to get
now
into
that what you told the
conflicting-
Collin County Grand Jury was not correct. Is that fair?
In reference to the shirt, correct.
I don't think the audio is crackling. Jim keeps clicking a pen. We just can't see Jim. So now they can't bring in the blood spatter expert because he said, no, the hemotrace came back that it wasn't.
Talk about a few other things right quick. On the night of early morning hours of June the 8th, you obtained Alec's clothes, his shirt, shorts, shoes, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned in your testimony that you wanted to get them there and then, but Buster was coming to the house, and so you graciously allowed Alec to go greet his son, and then you went up and got his clothes, correct?
Yes.
Graciously
And
allowed
when you
Alec
got his
to go
shirt,
get his son.
did you,
Interesting.
well, let me back up. You were standing in the doorway as he was changing?
Yes.
Oh yeah, Jim's
So
a big pen clicker.
You could see him changing.
Well, when he took his shorts off, I gave him some privacy.
And then he came out and dropped the shorts in a bag?
Yes. I can't remember if he dropped them in there or if he handed them to me and then I put them in there.
And if he handed them you would have had latex gloves on for sure, right?
Yes.
And did you put the shorts in one bag
Yes.
and then drop the T-shirt in another bag?
Yes.
And the shoes, I guess, in a third bag?
Yes, sir.
And did that happen sort of in the hallway?
That happened right there while I was standing in the doorway, yes.
And at the time, Alec was wearing, I guess, sort of like gym shorts or something he'd put on?
He put on clothes after he had changed, yes.
Do you remember what kind of clothes he put on? Like,
Not exactly, no,
That
sir.
probably
shorts?
explains the shirt
I
that
don't
fell,
recall what he
right?
put on afterwards.
was it a T-shirt?
I do not recall what he put on afterwards.
Can you say for sure it wasn't a pair of khaki pants?
It is asked and answered. It is asked
Can
and
you
answered.
say for sure it was not a pair of khaki pants?
I do not know what he put on afterwards.
Now, we've heard about a pair of khaki pants laying on the floor in the bathroom. Did SLED, Agent McAllister, anyone ever sees a pair of khaki pants from the house?
Not to my knowledge.
The thing is, the further we've gotten down the road,
One of the things
the impact
that
of
you
the earlier
testified to,
part of
and
the
I
cross
just wanted
starts getting lost, right? Because y'all start
so we
going,
can clear it up. I don't.
I'm bored.
You stated
There were
in
good
your
points.
testimony that Alec indicated he attempted to contact Nolan Tootin
I know I said good point.
that night.
But I have
Are you sure
forgotten.
it was Nolan and it wasn't Rogan?
He contacted Nolan Tootin that night and attempted to contact Rogan Gibson that night.
Okay. And you also mentioned that as you're driving from Charleston, it's intermittently raining, sometimes hard, sometimes not so hard.
Yes, sir.
And then when you got to Moselle, it looked like it had been raining. Sometimes it rained hard, sometimes not so hard.
Yes, sir.
And wasn't
I
it
thought
true
the
that
prosecutor was
rain
going to object
dripping
to the
off
raining. Oh,
the rooftop
look at you,
of
law
the
and
kennels
crime.
and above the feed room onto Paul's body?
They're just playing with some new layouts.
That's the fair assessment.
I like this layout. What do
And-
y'all think?
On his body, and then it was,
I'm here for
and
it.
was washing down
Okay.
the concrete pad. I mean, that's a fair assessment also, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And if the jury has seen in this trial photos of puddles of water that may look like blood, it's very easily explainable that it came from the rain dropping on Paul's body, right?
Yes.
Because the water is going to mix with the blood at the crime scene, which makes sense. I like it. And the boxes got a little bit bigger so we can actually see.
I think you covered it. Alec Murdaugh called you
Here for
multiple
it.
times, June and July and early August, asking for an update, did he not?
We communicated. Sometimes it was via text and sometimes it was via phone call.
You're right.
They're doing
And
a good
not
job.
only did he want an update for himself, but he also kept wanting you to update Maggie's parents as well.
And I met with Maggie's parents, yes.
Sure. But Alec was requesting that.
It's
of
interesting
you,
how Jim says
was he
sure
not?
to kind of
Well,
cut
he
off
was
an
requesting
answer.
that of me, yes, but I also intended to meet with Maggie's parents regardless if he requested it or not.
Okay. And you're also aware that Alec and Buster and his family put up a reward for tips.
I knew a reward was offered. It was under my impression that it came from the law firm, but I know that a reward was offered of $100,000 with an expiration date.
from the law firm. I know, him saying via text sounded very odd. Oh, everybody's got lifesavers going on. He phoned a friend too. It is long crime. We like this layout a lot.
In the interview of August 11th, one of the questions that Alec had of you was
I know. I'm surprised the prosecution
essentially
didn't get
whether
that in because
Maggie and
no one
Paul
coming forward with
suffered.
$100,000 in this area
Remember
is
that?
Yes, sir.
a big deal.
And I think you told them that if they did, it wasn't for very long, a matter of seconds. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
That cuts both ways. He asked if they suffered either because he is mourning or because he wants to know if he did it so bad. Everything you can go this
Now,
or this or this or this. It goes both ways. Which is what makes this case such a cluster.
Let me talk about the shot shells. The shot shells that were found in the feed room where Paul was murdered, there was a buckshot.
A
and
Winter
a-
Soldier, I don't say it was proof
I
of
think it
guilt.
was Winchester dry lock, waterfowl.
Nobody came forward.
sir.
Could
That's
because
not
they're
turkey
afraid of the
load, right?
Murdaughs. Could because they didn't know.
I was told it was turkey loaded first. I'm not a hunter.
But I'm surprised the
I'm
prosecution
not
didn't bring it
100%
up.
sure. I know it was small
It's a lot of
pellets
money
and
in
big
that area.
pellets.
Right.
I know the difference between small pellets and buckshot.
And that after, okay. So you were operating lead investigator under the impression that it was buckshot and turkey load,
But
right?
now he's just being sarcastic.
Yes. Someone told me that night that it was turkey load.
And turns out it wasn't turkey load. You agree with that?
I agree.
Okay.
There are
And,
jokes to be made about a turkey load, but I feel like it's
and-
inappropriate at the moment.
I think Agent Croft got involved because of his knowledge of firearms and shot shells and the works, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you mentioned that in the interview, you told Alec that that there were multiple guns found on the property that were loaded with buckshot and turkey load. Do you remember that?
I believe I used buckshot, birdshot.
Okay. Well, I mean, Agent Croft had testified, but can you identify any weapons that were loaded with buckshot and birdshot that were found in the house?
Repeat the question.
Can you identify any weapons found in the house at Moselle that were loaded with buckshot and birdshot?
No, sir.
They found birdshot. I just don't remember when it was.
Now, when you told Alec that there were multiple weapons loaded with that same load, buckshot and birdshot, I mean, was that an investigative tool, or were you just under the misimpression that that was the case?
Investigative tool.
So you lied to him?
I'm allowed to use trickery to elicit a response.
I understand. And so
He
you tried
should
to
have
trick him.
just said
Agreed?
yes.
I'm allowed to use trickery to elicit a response.
He should have
Yes.
just say yes. Don't back down from it. You're doing your job.
And you're allowed to do it, and you did it.
Yes.
Yes. No need to be defensive. Trust the maybe he
But-
doesn't trust the prosecution to redirect
You
on
also testified under oath in front of the state grand jury. You said basically the same thing, that there were 4 shotguns on the Moselle property, and they were loaded with buckshot and turkey load.
Yes.
Now, were you mistaken then, or were you trying to trick the state grand jury?
it. Oh,
No.
that's a good
I was
question.
not trying to trick the state grand jury.
You were mistaken.
No.
What, did you not?
The shotguns that we recovered from the house had 2 different loads in them. They weren't Winchester or Federal. They had different loads in them. So when I tell the state grand jury that there's different loads in the shotguns, there were different loads in the shotgun.
No, you're saying you weren't telling them that it was buckshot and turkey load, but you were telling them it was just different brand names of something.
I may have used buckshot and turkey load or birdshot, but they were 2 different loads.
You're saying they were a mixed load.
Well, I think we established that you did not find, SLED did not find any weapons at the house with buckshot and turkey load loaded in, right?
That is correct.
But there were guns with mixed load. How many times can they say load in one segment? So when he is questioning what was said to the grand jury, he is trying to find out if this officer said something different on the stand versus said something different at the grand jury, and is trying to impeach him with it. But I don't know if you even need to impeach this officer.
I'm gonna show you page 48.
Because the interview is the only thing he's really said of any consequence, and the interview is on
7
tape.
through 14 of your statewide grand jury testimony.
I don't know if it's proper impeachment or not. But if you ever wondered if the police are allowed to lie to you in an interview, here is your reminder that they can and they do.
Hey, gentlemen, do you recognize that to be a copy of your state grand jury testimony?
Yes, I do.
And what date was that given?
Tuesday, November 16th, 2021.
All right, and if you'll go to the page I had open, and and I tell you, I'm going to read the question, if you'll read the response.
Interesting.
It says,
Nobody's objected.
line 7,
So
all
I
right,
guess this
and
is what
we're-
happens.
all of them, to your recollection, loaded that like that. And your answer was?
They were loaded in a similar fashion.
Question, in a similar fashion?
Yes, sir.
Question, with one turkey load and one buckshot load?
Response, yes, sir.
All right, thank you. And that was not accurate, correct?
Correct.
Wow. And that was not accurate,
People
correct?
do make mistakes, do they not?
Correct.
Yes, they do make mistakes.
And people
Alec
make
just
mistakes
made a mistake with the time. It's a good
about
cross, Jim.
time, frequently. Is that right?
I would believe that would be the most mistake made is time.
Okay. And here, you were asked to identify inconsistencies with Alec's statements to you, and the one that you pointed out was times. Do you recall that?
It's a good cross.
Well, the
You made
inconsistencies
mistakes.
is they kept changing.
People make mistakes.
Well, that's right. I mean, you said that he said on June 8th he was at his mother's for, quote, a little while. And you said he changed it on June 10th to 25 to 30 minutes. Do you remember testifying to that?
I do.
And then you said on August the 11th, he said he was there 45 minutes to an hour.
Yes.
Okay. And you found that those were inconsistent.
Well, there was a difference between 20 to 30 minutes and 45 minutes to an hour.
Well, let's work on that. He left well, let me tell you, he told you that he left the Moselle property between 9 and 9:10, did he not?
He showed me his text messages, and it was narrowed down to 9:06, yes.
All right. So he clearly told you.
9:04, 9:06.
So on the
and
night
that's
of
when the car says he's leaving.
June 7th, early morning hours of June 8th, he told you, looking at the text message, I left here at 9:06. Is that right?
Correct.
And he got back, well, he called 911 about 10:06, right?
Correct.
And so he was gone to his mother's almost an hour, was he not?
And he showed you his phone.
He
in
was
that-
away from Moselle for an hour.
And
But my
he showed
question
you
to
that
him was,
phone.
how long were you at your mother, or how long were you at a meetup?
And
Jim's doing a good job of minimizing the difference.
in your investigation, as we established in my cross-examination of you
Right now.
I don't know how long I've been standing here, a few minutes ago. It's your investigative belief that Maggie and Paul were murdered sometime between 8:50 and 9:06, correct?
Yes.
So, for your investigative purposes, does it make any difference if he's at his mother's house 25 minutes, 35 minutes?
Good question.
Obviously, couldn't be there an hour and make it back and call 911, but, I mean, isn't that really not material? How long he was in his mom?
If I'm trying to build a timeline, yes, it is.
Well, your timeline is, you're focused on is 8:50 to 9:06.
So he's minimizing the mistake
Well, my
in time.
timeline and what we're talking about is how long he was away from the house when he says he went to Alameda. So he leaves Moselle at approximately 9:06 is when
Right.
he sends the text to Maggie. And the 911 call comes in at 10:06. So I know he's away from Moselle for an hour. And he says he goes to Alameda. How long did you spend at Alameda?
Right.
He tells me 20 to 30 minutes. Then he goes 45 minutes to an hour.
I see. I got it. So it's possible that he was only at Alameda for 5 minutes and he was spending the other time hiding evidence. I mean, that's, I understand
Possibly.
that would be what you're looking at, right?
Yes.
But General Motors has sent their records in and we know he goes straight to Alameda and goes straight back, right?
Right back.
That is true, but if you look at the GPS points that came from General Motors, one of them puts him way in the backyard of Alameda,
Oh,
not in the driveway or where it's normal for them to park.
huh.
In the backyard at the door where Miss Shelley Smith says he knocked on.
I believe that point's closer to Miss Libby's work shed.
Okay, we'll get there. Okay.
Jim's like, we'll get there. Jim's having a very good cross, but we have not gotten any of the GM points yet. I thought we were going to get it with this witness. We're clearly not going to get it today. This has been Jim's best cross-examination. I think this has been one of the best cross-examinations of this
But
case.
we know from phone records,
And Jim has scored some big
essentially
points
when
that
he
the
got
jury
there, like
will not like,
9:22, correct?
Yes, sir.
including
I believe that's
misstatements to
the
the grand
findings.
jury.
And we know
That is a
from
very
the
big one.
GM telemetry data and the GM OnStar and other records, what time he left, about 9:45, right?
Yes,
And
We haven't heard the GM
So we know
stuff yet.
exactly
It's
how
in
long he was
evidence.
yes.
We'll talk about GM in a minute. The GM stuff's in evidence. The custodian of
but
records
the
put
fact
it into
that he
evidence.
couldn't recall whether he and
Nobody's
Paul
testified
rode around
about it
for
yet.
an hour and a half, two and a half hours.
Somebody's going to have to
You
testify
found
to
that
it.
significant in your investigation.
Yes.
Now, you also testified that
So far the crosses I like best are this one and then the DNA cross.
in the
by
fall of
Barber.
2021,
Those
there
have been the
started up
best.
a financial investigation into Alex' financial dealings, is that
Oh,
correct?
let's talk about
Yes,
what
sir.
brought that all down on
And you
his
said
head.
that overlapped
Sure.
and fed off each other with what your murder investigation was doing?
Yes, it involved Alec.
Right.
Like everything
We
else,
were
apparently.
Looking at the totality of the circumstances and seeing if there was any paths that crossed or,
Okay. Well, I
He
tell
says
you what,
okay to cut off the answer.
I'll
It's very
skip one
interesting.
part.
Tick.
In your interview, as of August 11th, you told us that you had excluded everyone from the circle who had come in to the circle except for Alec, and he was your one and only suspect at that point in time.
yes,
And you talked about interviewing C.B. Rowe and him telling you where he was on June 7th, right?
yes,
But he later, you found out, he lied to you about where he was on June 7th, right?
yeah, he came forward and was
What?
honest with us without us even approaching him.
All right.
Wait,
But he was,
what?
initially told you one thing about where he was, subsequently told you I was not honest about where I was.
Yes, he didn't want Mr. Murdaugh to know that he was looking for another job and fear of being fired.
Well, that makes sense.
But
He was afraid of Alec.
part of this
Okay,
financial investigation
that kind of makes sense.
that overlapped,
So he said he took his
You-
dad to the
you
doctor, but he was
developed
looking for
information that
another
Alec was
job.
stealing money from a law firm.
Okay,
client
fair.
money to support a drug addiction, did you not?
That's what was purported, that it was for a drug addiction, yes.
He doesn't
And
believe
you
that.
learned through your investigation that Alec was paying up to $50,000 a week to a guy named Curtis Eddie Smith for drugs, right?
That's what was told to us, yes.
And you learned
$50,000
through
a
this
week.
investigation, what was told to you, that Eddie was
Bullshit.
buying these drugs from other folks, members of Sandhill drug gang, right?
Yes.
Do they call
The Sandhill
themselves?
drug gang was a precursor to the Cowboys drug ring, right?
Ding, ding, ding. There's
I'm
the
not familiar with the Cowboys, but that's what I've been told.
There's
yes.
the Cowboys.
And you learned that Eddie owed these drug gang members a lot of money for drugs that were sold to Alec, didn't you?
I believe the information came in too, that they weren't worried about what was owed because they knew they were going to get paid.
That came to you after the Maggie and Paul were murdered, right?
That came to us after September-ish incident as well.
And did you ever conduct a cell phone analysis of these drug gang members to see where they were on the night of June the 7th?
I didn't have their phone numbers.
Of what
in my
random-
experience, that they don't keep the same phone numbers. They use what's called burner phones.
Like
But we
Alec?
also did an analysis around Moselle, trying to encompass anybody else coming in.
Oh.
And that information did not pan out. There was only 2 people identified, and they were emergency first responders.
And you're talking about the geofencing stuff.
Yes, sir.
They did a cell phone dump and found no unknown persons
Did you
coming
ever
in or out of
obtain
Moselle.
any DNA
Why
samples
haven't we
from
heard
these
that more
Drug
then?
gang members to see if they matched
Excuse
Maggie's
me?
fingernail?
Where was that testimony?
No, sir.
And you really never put them in the circle.
Where was that testimony? Why is this coming out on
The
cross?
investigation into that, in my understanding, I'm not
What?
investigating the drug aspect. That investigation is still ongoing, from my understanding.
$50,000 a week on drugs makes absolutely no sense to me.
1 second, you know.
And also, geofencing? So they dumped the phones to see what unknown numbers came in and out of that cell phone tower, and the prosecution hasn't asked. So the only numbers that they could identify that came in that were unknown were first responders. So no one else had a phone on that was up at Moselle, and no one thinks to ask about it until Jim Griffin's cross-examination? What are you doing? I don't have papers to throw. I don't want to mess up my desk. I am exacerbated. What? First of all, I don't believe anything about this $50,000 a week drug habit. There's no way, because this man is still standing. So that doesn't make sense to me at all. Could it be a cover for other things? Possibly. Could it indicate that money is going some to drugs and some to offshore? Maybe. Could they be laundering money? Maybe. But I am so fucking annoyed right now. Y'all. I mean, April said unless Alec was selling drugs, he has not been indicted for selling. Eddie Smith has. He's been indicted for aiding and abetting, though. So there's some of that. But it's not coming in at this trial. I need a swoop. We need to talk. Could it be blackmail? It could be. We've heard, we're not going to hear any evidence about it. The jury's going to be left wondering. Let's go. Yes, Miguelina, let's go ahead and end the poll.
We have to talk about these cell phones because what is happening? In this case, it's just what? We're using the pickle. We're doing an aura fluff with the pickle. Fine. Motion granted for the goat. This entire case, the cross-examination has made the direct examination make sense, and that's not the way it should be.
So I this has been a very good cross-examination by Jim Griffin. I think his best examination in this case, for sure. This investigating officer on the stand looks a bit defensive, nervous. There's clearly something that was said to a grand jury that is not entirely accurate about the mixed loads of the guns. But what we heard at the very end on cross, never by the prosecutor, is that they did a geofence analysis of the cell phone towers around Moselle. They didn't explain this to the jury. They hit it quick and moved. Of the cell phone towers around Moselle, and there were 2 numbers that hit the cell phone towers off Moselle that were unknown, and those were tracked back to law enforcement. So they reverse engineered. They got the numbers that hit the towers and then went and found who they belonged to. Why is that evidence? That's really good evidence. Is that not good evidence? How is that not good evidence? It's good evidence to say, hey, no other cell phone came into Moselle that night. It doesn't mean another person didn't come to Moselle. It didn't mean someone didn't turn off their cell phone. It doesn't mean another person wasn't there. But it answers a question that the jury's going to have. It's so remote. Why not just check? There's 1 tower. And now we're starting to hear allusions to the GM evidence that apparently everybody has stayed up forever looking at because they just got it over the weekend. But now we've got allusions to the fact that the GPS puts Alec at the back of his parents' very large property when he comes to see Miss Shelley. And Miss Shelley's testimony was so confusing, not because of Miss Shelley, but because of the prosecutor, that there was time that they were moving around the property with their cars and ATVs or whatever, and something had a flat tire because everything in the trials had a flat tire, and they were moving shit around off and on the property. So if the night of the murders, Alec Murdaugh is at the back of the property, and then when he's there for the wake, they are moving vehicles around up the back of the property by the smokehouse and everywhere else, then we know the answer to that question. Or at least the jury could know the answer to that question if they're inclined to believe that. Evidence that the prosecution indicted this man without knowing, because we just got the GPS data, or they just got the GPS data on Friday, and we still don't have it all the way into evidence. When is it going to get into evidence? I don't know. Hopefully tomorrow. But that becomes very interesting evidence for the prosecution if it hasn't already been so damaged by this witness testifying that basically they misstated how the guns were loaded to the grand jury, which is a big fucking misstatement. Oh yeah, well, we thought they were loaded the same way. Oh, well, all the guns weren't exactly loaded the same way, but we know that some of them were, but not all of them were. But nobody can fucking remember because the way the guns were loaded when they were taken out of the property was so long ago, and they were like, look, a gun, look, another gun, and this one was loaded with this, and this one was loaded with that, and we all went, what? What was loaded with Winchester, and what was loaded with the other one, and I don't even know. What was loaded with Federal? What was loaded with, I don't know. Whiskey, pork and beans, I don't know at this point. But it was so long ago and so disjointed. I don't remember what the guns were loaded with. I remember some of them had a mixed load, and we all went, huh, weird, so they've loaded that gun that way before. But now it looks like this officer lied to a grand jury because not all of them were a mixed load. And when he said, so you were mistaken, his answer was yes. So that's what's in the minds of the jury. And then they're like, well, people can be mistaken about time. Yeah, people are frequently mistaken about time. The redirect is going to have to be good, but this cross-examination has been very good at poking some doubt into the stories. But if we get this officer's also done a very good job, to his credit, even though he looks like he hates being here for every single moment. This officer is also sitting there trying to throw answers back in, which a jury might not like, because it looks like he's trying to cover things up. So either he's sassing or he's not sassing, but the jury might not like that. Instead of saying yes or no, what he's saying is, yeah, well, this is this, and that. Okay. But we have never heard anything about the geofencing, and that is just wild. Wild. Just wild. How do they not put that evidence in? It's highly relevant evidence that all of us went, wait, what? What are you doing, prosecution? Why are you not actually showing the evidence? Maybe it's coming with another witness. I don't know. I don't know. But the jury wants to hear the evidence, and we've had very, very many questions and very, very few answers. Whew. This has gotten to be a very big mess, which is exactly what Jim Griffin wants, and that is his job. He has created kind of a mess, and that is the job of the defense. They're worried about flying in shoe experts and shit. I don't even know if they're going to need it. It might be overkill at this point, because the facts and the holes in this case are big, and they should narrow their defense case to poking at those holes. So Jim has had a very effective cross. I'm just completely perplexed that the prosecution didn't bring any information in about, the fact that no unknown cell phones were in the area. And, well, we'll get there. We'll see what happened with the GPS being at the front or back of the property with the vehicle. But the GPS data on the vehicle is going to be very, very interesting. So with all of that, I am just stunned. So let's get back to some questions. I am very confused. It's just, everybody's going to walk away from today's testimony this afternoon and be like, so were there mixed loads in the shotguns or not? Because that was the biggest point so far for me. There were other points on that cross, but once we got to that, I was like, are you joking me? Oh, and Jim did a really good job of getting into the blood spatter nonsense, knowing that the prosecution can't bring that expert because that expert's such a disaster. And they boxed the prosecution in on it. It was a very effective cross for Jim. All right, let's swoop. This is why they tell the jury not to make up their mind until the end of the case. I don't think juries always abide by that, but this case keeps going like this. It's like that. So for I've seen some of you mentioning my internet. I have hardwired internet. We also have a whole bunch of stormy storms coming in. So the atmosphere where I live is a little unstable. So if the internet is unstable, it is to be expected. It's better than it was this morning. The HBO Max, there's a documentary called Low Country that's all about the Murdaugh family and their dirty laundry. None of that's going to come in on this trial, but yes, there are multiple docu-series, and then are multiple podcasts. Can you please explain why they couldn't check the tower at Moselle for other pings since the property is so remote? Deanna, this super chat came in at 1:26. It is 3:12 p.m. Apparently, they did. But we wouldn't know it because nobody told us. The Depp trial came down to Amber Heard's own words heard by the jury. And that might be true here too. But this investigation, the defense is going to argue this investigation was fucked. And I think all of us are going, yeah, but not the same way, or at least I don't agree with the defense is saying this is fucked because they were just trying to put him in the circle and keep him in the circle. I think they didn't want him to be in the circle. And so they just were kind of go like, I don't really want to look too hard. That's the sense I got from this investigation. They don't want to look too hard to have it be Alec. So they're trying not to look too hard to have it be Alec. I don't get the sense that they're rushing to judgment at all. At all. Do you think the defense will rest and not call any witnesses? Not a chance. Oh, not a chance. They're going to want to have their moment. I think they should limit it though, because I think they've done a lot of work here. Lisa says he lost a ton of weight in 2 months. Alec, he does look thinner in the second police video. Absolutely. But he's also lost family members either way. So that doesn't shock me, but he definitely looks noticeably different in that second interview. Interview has me from guilty to guilty AF, but does it change now? You got to that's why you got to keep watching. That's why we're all stuck. This trial has had parts that have been so plotting and difficult and have just been like, ugh. And now we're getting to, wait, what? Wait, what? Wait, what? Things are happening. Things are happening. We have now gotten back to things are happening, and I want to see the things happen. I'm here for it. All right. We're staying here for a minute because the other stream is doing the things I do. I started watching You Fell in Love with the Law and am now in law school. Congratulations.
I know we've been in trial 4 weeks. I certainly don't want to.
Also, the way he's bobbing up and down, holding his arm strikes me as drunk. I don't know if it is or isn't.
I'm last questions that they opened the door to the roadside shooting.
Oh, shit.
Before I ask
Hannity.
About that?
Thank you.
to follow up when Eddie Smith came into the how he came in the investigation.
He's in the middle of cross-examination at this moment.
Okay, can I ask him when Eddie Smith came into the investigation?
You want to ask him questions?
Well, I didn't want to do anything to mistrial, and I was surprised that came up.
I understand, and I agree with you.
Oh, fucking
But
no.
now is not the time for you to, in the middle of his cross-examination, to bring the jury.
I think what this attorney needed to say was, Your Honor, before we get to redirect, I need to speak to the court outside the presence of the jury, or do we want to do it now? But the prosecution has made literally nothing fucking clear. I feel like this prosecutor, you would get confused taking his order for dinner. But the prosecutor is arguing that he thinks that Eddie Smith has well and fully entered the equation, which the court ruled to keep out this morning. But the defense has asked, are you aware he's getting all this money from Eddie Smith? The money could be for the roadside incident. The money might not be for drugs. Oh, shit. So Jim likes to find a door. He kind of flings them open dramatically, and he's like, ha ha. But the prosecution didn't just clearly state what he wanted to state because he's so, and I get it, on trial you're on high alert and you're in complete like adrenaline overload the entire time, which is why so many attorneys suffer from adrenal fatigue, but you're in full adrenaline overload like the entire time. I understand that. But he needed to say to the judge, I believe they've opened the door. We need to talk to the court before we enter our redirect. And that's all he needed to say. Because the judge thought he was asking to ask questions now. Jim and Pooh want Eddie Smith. They do, because Eddie Smith is a mess. So, Blues said, Emily, your knowledge and time is bar none. Thank you. Jim's a witness. Jim is totally a witness. And Jim knows all the tea. We don't know all the tea yet, but Jim knows all the tea. I want us to know all the tea. Sosa Pins said, I definitely would have had a way bigger reaction if I was accused of murdering my loved ones. It's an interesting thing. J. Michael RN, doesn't this link the September event? He found out he was a suspect, then the financial crimes, then the roadside, the house of cards were falling.
You may continue.
Where that peaked right into my ear. I think it's fair, but we'll see. Alice, best channel on YouTube for coverage of the trial. Thank you. I think so too. Question,
Just a few
has
loose
the evidence
ends,
presented
Owen.
convinced you to go? I'll get back to that in a minute.
In your investigation, you did not identify any life insurance on the lives of Maggie and Paul. Is that correct?
No, I did not.
Good question.
And one of the things that was asked of Dr.
They're
Reamer
using this witness to get in the facts
about
that are
a
good for
conversation
them.
she had with you as to the stain on Maggie's calf. Do you remember whether Dr. Reamer told you that there's a bruise there as well?
Dr. Reamer said she did not note a bruise.
I believe that is.
It's in my notes. Hang on just a moment.
So I saw a question coming in
According
saying,
to my notes,
darn it, I'll get there. I thought we were going to be flipping
we
for
talked about
longer.
believes first shot was to Maggie's legs, then abdomen, followed by the wrist to headshot with final rear headshot. There was a bruise on Maggie's left calf that coincided with possibly shoe print, but Dr. Reimer did not feel someone intentionally stood on her leg.
That contradicts
according
Dr.
to my
Reimer's
notes.
testimony.
Yes, sir. And you're,
Not Dr. Reimer's
and
notes.
those related to, there was a muddy thing on the back of her calf, and Dr. Reimer noticed there was a bruise there as well. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that
As to
undermines
the
Dr. Reimer's
fingerprints,
testimony.
were there any dusting for fingerprints done in the feed room at Moselle?
They talked about how
I
they
am
did
not aware if there
prints.
was or not. I wasn't in the feed room with the crime scene the entire time.
Okay, and and we talked about the DNA swabs. I mean, one of the people that was supplying Curtis Eddie Smith is in custody, is he not?
He is in custody, yes, sir.
Have you gotten a DNA swab from him?
I have not, but I know one has been obtained, yes.
Okay. And you know if it's been cross-checked against?
It was not obtained in this case. I don't know. I believe it has been cross-checked.
Okay.
I don't have that report in front of me.
Yeah, another point.
They're just like, we're going all the way in on Curtis Eddie
You were
Smith.
not made aware of the negative hemotrace confirmatory blood test until sometime in November of 2022, is that
This
right?
cross has
That is
gotten
correct.
spicy.
How is it that the lead case agent is left out of the information channel for something so significant?
From what I was able to figure out, when the lab issues reports, pursuant to my case or any other agent's case, we have email notifications to go in and find that report, or, you know, there's a new report available. Once I figured out that report existed, I searched my emails, and I did not have an email notification that that report was there. There's multiple other reports. I had been in there multiple times looking at other reports, and that report, I did not see that report. I was not made aware of its existence.
Sure. And it wasn't until after you saw that report that now you changed focus to the clothes he was wearing in the Snapchat video, is that correct?
That's a very good question.
Restate that question.
Yeah, that's a hard
It wasn't until
one.
after you became aware that there's no blood, hemotrace confirmatory test of blood on Alec's shirt, that you start, you know, asking questions of folks about the clothing that Alec was wearing in the Snapchat video.
Well, I asked him on August the 11th of 2021, because I had that Snapchat video, when did he change clothes?
And he didn't
And-
tell
and he
anybody
said
he changed clothes.
He didn't know.
And he said he didn't know when he changed clothes.
But you never asked for those clothes, never tried to find those clothes, never executed a search warrant for those clothes, have you?
No, sir.
Did you develop any information that Eddie Smith was skimming money, that Alec was paying him for the drugs, that he wasn't paying the Sand Hills gang everything they were doing?
I am
What?
not aware of that information.
That assumes facts, not
And
evidence.
the last thing,
Eddie Smith was
You had mentioned
skimming
that,
money and not paying the other drug dealers.
part of your, and
Okay.
on the tape interview with Alec, you had mentioned that the
They are trying to get into drug dealers did this.
blackout cartridges that were found near Maggie's body matched, or they were ejected, extracted from the same firearm as used to eject, extract cartridges at the house and the shooting range. Remember telling Alec that?
Yes.
And, but you were informed, though, that forensically, at the lab, they could not say with 100% confirmation that they did actually match until the missing firearm is recovered.
That was my understanding, yes.
And that's what Agent Greer or others that he worked for and told you as lead case agent,
That's what Mr. Greer told me, yes.
that he couldn't say with 100% certainty. Is that right?
Of which, he couldn't say 100% certainty which firearm that came out of until he had a firearm to compare it to.
Thank you.
Redirect.
Oh, now you ask the
Did he
court.
say that no shell casings from Maggie's body, the side of the house?
Don't do that.
Shooting range were all cylinder that came from, had been in the same gun at one time.
Yes.
And when you asked the defendant on that in the third interview, they said this was a.
I'm going to answer this
told
when
him,
we get a break.
"That's what I told you." So it was a family-owned gun, right?
Yes.
And then he kind of responded, "How did they get it?" He was almost going with you. How did they get it, right?
Yes, sir.
Where'd the lawyer go? I'm lost. Law and crime knows. Law and crime's like, we can't even put this guy in a little box because he wanders all over the place. Counsel, stay there.
Asking them to give statements.
Yes, sir.
Tell me what happened.
Yes, sir.
And on June 7th, did you say, "Tell me what happened"?
Yes, sir.
And on June 10th, did you say, "Tell me what happened"?
Yes, sir. And on June 10th, I wanted more detail.
I'm sorry.
I wanted more detail on June 10th.
And did you get more detail?
I got more detail on June 10th, yes.
God love you for trying.
And on August 11th, did you give some information and
Just leave it. Let him be off screen.
then try to gain some information?
That is correct.
And Mr. Griffin asked you about that shirt and all. Did he say, "Bo, hold on, let me go get that thing and bring it back to you right now"?
The shirt? No, sir.
He didn't say, "Hold on, I'll go and get that shirt right now."
Talking about the white T-shirt?
No, sir,
No, the
I'm
blue
talking
shirt?
about on August 11th.
Oh, no, sir.
He was talking.
No, sir.
And he tried to describe it. Did this, what is described as a seafoam shirt? Are you familiar with that?
Leading and misleading.
How would that shirt be described? Do you know in your investigation by the witness who saw it? Ms. Blanca says.
Ms. Blanca described
He
to
is
me
leaving.
that she saw him leaving the house that Monday morning in a seafoam
Columbia
pullover.
shirt.
I believe she characterized it as a Vinnie Vine shirt.
A polo shirt
She
leaving
did
that
not.
Yes.
She
On this
most
video he
certainly
showed
did
you
not.
With the tree. How would she describe that
Wow.
shirt and the tree?
A blue
Alec
button-up
told her
she
to say it was
described
a
as
Vinnie Vine.
Columbia-style shirt.
Columbia. Seafoam. Seafoam color?
I don't lead the witness.
Did she tell you what color she thought it was?
The one leaving that morning?
No, sir.
No,
The
the
one on
one
the tree.
blue.
Wow.
On June 7th, June 10th,
that
August
was kind of a
11th,
mess.
did Alex Murdaugh ever mention anybody else that might be a potential suspect in this case?
No, sir. Other than, he continued to mention the boat case, but no specific individual.
Did he mention to you anything about these cowboys that Mr. Griffin's asked you about?
No, sir.
Did he mention to you anything about a Curtis Edward Smith?
No, sir.
June 7th he didn't?
No, sir.
June 10th he didn't?
No, sir.
August 11th he didn't?
No, sir.
When did he ask you about Curtis Edward? Or when did he bring in Curtis Edward Smith into this investigation? He being Alex Murdaugh.
September 4th, 2021.
September 4th, 2021. And could you tell us how that came about?
Objection overruled.
Objection to what?
Continue.
How did it come about that Mr. Murdaugh told you about Curtis Edward Smith?
Oh, here we
September
go.
4th, 2021, I received a phone call from Randy Murdaugh that Alec had been shot,
Oh, shit.
and they were concerned for his safety and what was going on. And I immediately responded, along with other agents, to the scene. And the scene on Old Salkehatchie Road in Varnville, Hampton County.
Well, there it is.
And did you go to that scene?
I did.
And did you see the defendant Alex Murdaugh at the scene?
No, I did not. He had been transported to the hospital.
This is such a sideshow.
And do you
at
know
this
where he
point.
was transported?
I believe it was Savannah, a hospital in Savannah.
Okay. And at that point, did you or another
I think he's
SLED
yelling
agent
'cause he's
go to
excited.
Savannah Hospital to interview the defendant?
2 other agents went to the hospital to interview Alec.
And was one of those agents Neil?
No, Agent Kelly.
Agent Kelly? You in the courtroom? Yes. Will you please stand?
You in the courtroom. Is it you back there?
Is that him?
Yes, sir.
Him?
Thank you. And in the
Jeez.
hospital, and what day was this?
September 4th, 2021.
September 4th, 2021. And at that point, did the defendant...
Blues, I'll
or
take
did
a look.
you learn through an investigation, did he say somebody shot him on the side of the road?
Yes, through the investigation, that's what's told to us.
Well, did he identify anybody on September 4th who shot him?
Not by name, he gave a description.
He gave a description.
Yes.
Did he attempt to pick somebody out of a book?
No, sir. There was
I
believe
think the defense has been planting
SLED
this to
forensic
make the
composite artist,
prosecution walk into
went
it
down and
because
did a
Eddie
composite
is
drawing
good
of
for
him.
them.
So he helped get a sketch of the person who shot him?
Yes, sir.
Describe the person?
Yes, sir.
Did they actually do a sketch?
Yes, sir, they did.
And at that point, had he
I think the
mentioned
prosecutors
anybody's
are
name
playing into
else
the
in the
defense
investigation
strategy.
that you ought to go back and look at about Paul and Maggie's murder?
No, sir.
I think the defense wants this in because Eddie becomes the red herring.
Did
And the
defendant
prosecution's like
tell
full
you
bore
or
ahead.
your law enforcement friends he was lying about the roadside incident?
Objection to the extent it's hearsay. If he didn't tell this agent, then it's not the appropriate witness.
Yes, sir.
Did the defendant give another statement about the roadside?
Yes, he did.
Who did he give it to? Who did he give it to?
Admit he was lying?
Who did he give the statement to?
Statement to you or to someone else?
Statement to someone else, sir.
Objections sustained.
Yeah, you can't do that, counsel.
Point, in response to their question, did the defendant bring in Curtis Eddie Smith's name to this?
I don't believe he ever brought Curtis Smith's name into it.
Just bring up
It
the
was through the
witness.
investigation that we developed him as a suspect or a subject involved in the shooting.
And did the defendant give an interview with Mr. Harpootlian and Mr.
This
Griffin
lawyer,
via
this
audio phone
prosecutor,
call
man,
where they mentioned Curtis Edward Smith?
this prosecutor
Objection's overruled.
has done that over and over in this case.
I
where
know
he
an interview,
can't do things and he just plows
was
through.
conducted.
Is not
I don't know
okay.
who was present. I was not present for that interview.
Did Curtis Edward Smith come through the chief investigator's name come out of that interview?
I do not know, sir.
Call that witness. Oh, they have been outmaneuvered today. Curtis Eddie Smith is only working for the defense right now,
But
not
prior to
as a
that
witness,
day,
but as a
had
plot
Alex
line.
Murdaugh ever mentioned to you Curtis Edward Smith or anybody else that might have been involved in his son's or mother's, his son's or his wife's murder?
No, sir.
They're going to argue it's concocted later, but it is not a good redirect.
So after the roadside incident, and whatever he told whoever's going to be called, that's when he brought in other people.
Yes, sir.
It's a fair question.
Now, Mr. Griffin's asked a lot of questions about the search. The crime scene where the two bodies were, was that secure?
Yes, it was.
Was evidence gathered?
Yes, it was.
Were swabs taken?
Yes, they were.
And I think he asked you about the Suburban, his Suburban, and whether or not there was anything wet in the back of his car. Are you familiar with what's known as a cooler?
Yes.
A good old cooler?
Yes, sir.
Could you put wet garments in a cooler?
You can, yes.
You can.
Yes.
Okay.
Was there a cooler? Or what the fuck are you
Can you ask
talking
you
about?
about anything in the car? Was there blood on the steering wheel of Suburban, that car?
There was blood found on that steering wheel, yes.
And that DNA from that blood came back to whom?
Maggie Murdaugh.
Maggie Murdaugh.
Yes, sir.
And he asked you about some guns. Did the defendant hand you a gun?
He handed first responders the gun, yes,
Not
sir.
What
him.
type of gun was that?
It was a 12-gauge shotgun.
When I say you sometime, I mean law enforcement.
I
I
understand.
apologize. And as a result of swabs, was blood identified on that gun?
Yes, sir.
And whose blood, whose
Maggie.
DNA was that?
Maggie Murdaugh.
Maggie Murdaugh.
Yes, sir.
And was that 12-gauge shotgun consistent or inconsistent with the weapon that killed Paul Murdaugh?
It was the same gauge, being a 12-gauge, and firearms examiner was not able to exclude the gun.
Which means you could include it but not exclude it.
Correct.
That's not how doubt works. Couldn't there? Okay.
And Mr.
Go back to the blood on the car. You were doing better
I asked you
there.
about getting out of the circle. But when you talk to somebody,
I am
are you
in the
looking for
seventh
consistent
circle
statements,
with
inconsistent
this
when
right
you're
now.
examining or talking to somebody who might be involved? Why are you asking them
Seventh
questions?
circle.
To learn more, to see if they tell the same story.
And if that story is contradicted by other witnesses, do you want to know that?
Yes, sir.
And were you going out to check his story with other witnesses?
Yes,
What he told you versus what other witnesses told you?
correct.
As a result of that, were there contradictions between what Mr. Murdaugh told you and what witnesses told you?
Oh my God! Stop
Shelley
yelling.
Smith,
Yes,
Blanca Simpson,
yes.
and he asked you, it's been a long time about this time frame, why does it matter when he got out to Alameda?
He's getting past notes. Stop wandering.
Would
Hopefully the
it
note says
matter
go
if
back to the
somebody's
podium.
hiding guns somewhere on Alameda? Would you need time to do that?
You would need time, but if you're familiar with it, I don't think you would need that much time.
But would it take time to go hide guns?
5 minutes, 10 minutes? Yes.
Would it take
That's all
time?
speculative.
Would that be a reason you might have a contradictory statement how long you visited
Yes.
somebody?
That's
Yes.
leading.
And your car would still be there, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Super leading. All the leading. All the leading.
Did he asked you about CB Road? Did he ever identify did he ever tell you about a cooler that was found out there at some point that wasn't usually there?
Leading.
Yes, out by what's been referred to as the skin shed, where they process meat.
What was that about that cooler?
What?
In course of your investigation, had that cooler been there before this night?
CB Rowe told us it was not. When he left on Friday, prior to the,
Objection sustained.
Did you see that cooler after Friday?
did I see the cooler on when CB Rowe pointed it out? Yes.
You did see it?
Yes.
And was it there Saturday, excuse me? Did you see it on Monday?
Was he clapping?
Or Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning?
Monday night, Tuesday morning, yes, I did see it.
Did you see that
What
cooler again?
is happening?
I don't recall.
Okay.
What is happening? If you want CB Rowe's description of the cooler,
He asked you
call,
about the rain jacket, the
call
tarp,
CB Rowe as a witness.
and asked you if, was there any blood or,
He is talking in all caps. I feel like I'm being yelled at. I think the prosecutor clapped.
is that coat, does that repel water? That jacket, the rain jacket?
What,
Yes, I would think so.
sir?
Being a rain jacket.
Okay. I need to breathe. What is happening today? I don't know how the fuck I'm going to summarize this for y'all. Because I don't know what's happening.
GSR located on that rain jacket.
There's a cooler
On the inside of it, yes.
and a jacket
On the inside,
and clapping. There was clapping. Hi, buddy.
He asked you about blood or DNA. Was there a whole bunch of GSR found on that inside of that rain jacket?
yes, it was.
And he asked you about, I believe, Shelley's testimony or about seeing that rain jacket. Did she say he was holding it like this?
Yes, she said it was balled up in his arms.
They can't see you.
And he
He
was
says hi.
asking you about timing, I think, unless I'm crazy. That could be there 5 years, 10 years. When did Blanca System, when did Shelley Smith, I'm sorry, tell your investigation, hey, I saw him with this blue vinyl coat? When was that in relation to the murders? Was that 5 years, 10 years? How long was that?
Objection, Your Honor. He's misstating the
Objection is overruled.
in the record.
She told us she saw it the day after Mr. Randolph Murdaugh's funeral, which through my investigation,
Objection is overruled.
which would have been June 14th, the following Monday after Paul and Maggie were murdered. So 7 days.
It's already in evidence. Andy's the investigating officer. Oh my God. This prosecutor needs to take a breath and just do a slow redirect. You've got time. I don't know why they're racing. You're not ending today anyway. Good. I'm glad you took my advice.
What's there?
Thank you for listening. I feel like he was like trying to reset his own. I don't know what was happening. It's just so disjointed. And the defense has pulled the prosecution down the rabbit hole of Curtis Eddie Smith. And Curtis Eddie Smith is the doubt they're introducing into this
Your
case.
testimony to the Colleton grand jury.
Yes, sir.
I didn't know it was out there. Did you give them a summary of the case?
The grand jury, yes.
And did that include timeline?
I believe so, yes.
Some of his financial crimes?
Yes, sir.
Background?
Yes, sir.
Did that include information the jury hears from some of these lawyers and the financial issues?
Yes, sir.
Did that include whether blackout casings near Maggie were consistent with those? and
How
matched
is
those
any of
found near
this
the house and the property?
proper?
It did.
Did it include that the family had 3 blackout rifles?
Yes.
Alex originally had 2, but remembered in the follow-up, one of them had been replaced.
Yes, sir.
You're just reading in the grand jury testimony now? What is this?
Did you present whether or not shotguns of similar make and load were found on the property?
Yes.
What are you doing? What is that? Why is nobody objecting?
Alex was in possession of a shotgun that was consistent with one of the murderous weapons? Couldn't be excluded?
Correct.
Did you mention to them
Are we
about Shelley
objecting?
Smith
Are we
that kind of what
strategizing
we've
our
just been
objections?
talking
What is
about?
happening?
Yes, sir.
Did you mention to them about defendant denying going to the kennels 3
This
times?
isn't.
Yes.
Leading the witness.
It's
Don't lead the witness.
it's
What
not
did
just
you tell them
leading.
about him going to the kennels?
It's
That after dinner, he stayed at the house and took a nap. When Maggie went to the kennels and Paul left, he wasn't sure where he went, but then he was
what
never
he
at the kennels
testified to the
after
grand
dinner.
jury to is completely
Did you
irrelevant.
mention to them about Rogan Gibson?
Unless it's for completeness
And the phone
around
call,
what the defense
that he had
impeached
had
him
with
on.
Paul, and that Rogan had heard. Paul was talking to Paul on the phone, heard Maggie in the background, and he was 99% sure that he heard Alec in the background. And that phone call would have been around 8:44 p.m.
Did you mention about this to the grand jury, this video ultimately got located?
I
or
thought this trial
downloaded?
jumped the shark
it was-
with the
it was found
financial
on
crimes,
Paul's
but
phone.
today might be the day. I might have
And did you tell them the contents of that video?
Yes,
jumped the
that
shark
Paul was
with
taking a
jumping the
video
shark.
of the dog,
Like jump the
Rogan Gibson's
pickle?
dog, Chocolate Lab, and that Maggie was in the background, and that Alec was in the background.
And did you present to them about the, I think some of what we heard, the money he acquired, he being Alex, after this incident, the money he came into?
Yes.
I saw a question about the rules of evidence.
mention to them
The
about
rules of
whether
evidence are
Maggie
pretty
can
finite,
get him
jurisdiction to
in there or
jurisdiction.
not? What did you say to them about Maggie going to?
Jurisdiction to
And her
jurisdiction.
plans of whether
So
she was
no,
gonna
this
go to
is not
Moselle?
proper evidence in any jurisdiction. Some of it.
That Maggie had intended to go to Edisto, but had received a call from Alec requesting her to come home, that Paul was there, which contradicted the statements from the sister, Marion, where Maggie, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
It was a baby
Maggie
shark.
had called Marion
Do.
and said that she had received a call from Alec,
And now we're at Mama
that
Shark.
Alec wanted her to come to Moselle, that Paul was
Maybe-
there and his dad was in the hospital.
Maybe we'll get to
But during an
Daddy
interview
Shark.
with Alec in August, he stated that it was basically a surprise. He didn't know she was coming.
And did you mention to them that an reward had been offered on the offer?
That a reward was offered, $100,000 with an expiration date.
And did you tell them whether or not there was any other information or any other credible evidence pointing to anybody else?
I did.
I now have baby shark stuck in my head. Because
Mr. Griffin asked you about the scene.
I'm going to end up rocking back and forth in a minute.
It was bloody.
Very bloody.
Defendant said he had touched and rolled, tried to move Paul.
Yes, sir.
Did you see any evidence of that on him?
No.
Your eyes.
I did not see any on Alec. No, sir.
Counsel. I'm waiting for him to go. He was clean. Completely clean. But we did get him clapping his hands. Same. So that happened.
Mr. Griffin's gone. I don't know if it's a good question or not.
Great.
Did they say go to Alameda?
Great. Great. Good.
Yeah.
No, sir.
Alex Murdaugh, any of the lawyers there?
No.
They give you consent to search Alameda that night?
No, sir.
They said go search Alameda.
No, sir.
It is a ridiculous
Is
question.
that funny?
Oh, shit.
I'm sorry.
That's improper.
Him addressing me. If I found your question humorous, I'm sorry. I thought it was a funny question. It was a rhetorical question. I asked the court to instruct him not to address me, but the witness. Thank you.
Oh, shit.
You may proceed.
Oh, these two attorneys
Mr.
do
Griffin
not
said that
like
Defendant
each
never wanted to help,
other.
wanted to do all this.
That
Never
was improper
mentioned
by the prosecutor,
Curtis Smith or
but also
anybody else
Pooch
until
shouldn't have been
September.
laughing.
Leading.
Can't believe the
I'm
witness.
sorry. I apologize. Did he ever
He's
mention
rattled.
anybody else who could have done this, who could have been involved with, who could have killed my wife and my son from June 7th, 2021 until September of 21? Did he ever mention anybody else?
No, he did not.
That wasn't leading, actually. It was. It.
He's already answered.
Oh my God. I hear you, Greyhound with thumbs. Emily, take us home. We're scared. Mom, can you come pick
Further
me
questions?
up? Yes, Your Honor. This trial is scaring me. Oh my God, that moment with the lawyers was something.
Is it police procedure that the suspect of your investigation is supposed to solve the crime?
It's a good question.
No, it's not. But it helps to have information from other sources.
And you were asked a number of what ifs. One what if was like, what if he hid the guns in Alameda? How long would that take? And you said 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's a.
right.
I said 5 or 10 minutes, depending on if you know the area.
What if you'd gone over there that night and searched Alameda? How long would that have taken?
Yeah, it's a good question,
Quite
Jim.
sometimes, large property.
And we would know today that there were no guns hidden on the property.
Well, that night, Alec was not considered a main suspect,
How about
and I
you
had
search?
no information to go search Alameda for guns.
At what point in time did you ask Alec, did you hide guns at Alameda?
I didn't.
First time that question ever came to you was on February 15th at 4:30 in the afternoon. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Well, they have the GPS data from the GMs
I think you
now.
testified about item 22, and I just may not have heard you correctly, but
Oh, everyone is yelling.
Mr. Greer's testimony will speak for itself, but the results were he can't say it's item 22 is the shotgun that Alec had when Deputy Green came in, but he can't say, he can't exclude it, he can't exclude it. He can't say anything about it.
Correct.
Okay. Now, you mentioned what Shelley Smith told you in an interview, I take it. Did she tell you? Did you ever
Yes.
interview Shelley Smith?
Yes, I did.
And you testified that she told you that Alec came over there on June 14th in the morning, right? That's what you testified to this jury. That's what she told you.
She told me it was the day after Mr. Murdaugh's, Randolph Murdaugh's funeral.
All right.
Yeah,
Through
I
my
would like
research, would have
to.
been June 14th.
Excuse me, Nightbot,
And you
I
were
would
here in
like
the
to admonish
courtroom
the
when she
attorneys for
testified under
speaking in
oath
caps.
In front of this jury that
All of
Alec
us
came
have a
over
headache.
3 days later, and it was June the 16th on Wednesday. You heard that testimony, didn't you?
That's what she said in court, yes.
That was her sworn testimony, correct?
Yes.
That's all the question of that.
Oh, thank God.
Step down.
Oh, sweet, sweet, sweet Lord. Are we done? Are we?
Call your next witness.
Oh, fuck.
David Grubbs.
We're not. I'm not mentally prepared for another witness. We're not done. We're not done. We're not done. All right, David Gross. Clearly, you're a SLED agent. You have all of the beard.
Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you give today will be true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God? You would please, sir, proceed.
I need a minute.
For the record, spell your last name.
Poot, I love that Poot takes every opportunity to stand up in court and be like, Your Honor, how dare
My name is David
he?"
Grubbs, Grubbs.
Oh, not Gross. Grubbs.
Good afternoon, Mr. Grubbs. Where are you
Good afternoon.
employed, sir?
I'm employed with the South Carolina Attorney General's office.
All right. And what is your job title at the Attorney General's office?
I'm the Chief Forensic Investigator for the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force.
All right. And then just briefly, let the jury know what the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force does.
So we assist agencies throughout the state as well as have our own investigators, and we look into peer-to-peer downloads that go over the internet, usually containing child pornography.
This audience
in them.
knows
We
what you
also
do 'cause they
chat outs
watch
throughout the state.
all of my
against
coverage.
Minors to attract suspects. My unit specifically does the computer forensics for those cases.
Okay. When you say forensics, you mean, for instance, cell phone forensics, correct?
Yes.
So as part of your job duties, you perform cell phone downloads,
He is
extractions, and analyze them.
Not
Correct.
testifying about
And you've gone
that,
to a number of trainings in the past.
but he did the computer
that's
plot
focused
points and the
on that.
GM stuff,
Yes,
I'm
correct.
sure.
All right, can you read?
And the
for
cell phone
jury
stuff.
Your training in this
Most
area, please?
most prosecutors' offices
So
do
I'm
not
a
have somebody,
Cellbrite certified operator.
do not have
a
somebody who does
Cellbrite
forensics
certified
unless
business
they
analyst.
do forensics
I'm a
in this
certified
area,
blacklight
because they
examiner,
just
so
don't have the
cell phone
resources. So most of the people who do this are
extraction
tasked
tools.
to
I'm
that.
certified in Forensic Explorer, which is,
So that's why we're
forensic
here
analyst
with the people who
computers.
do the
Griffi,
Josh
analyze
Duggery
training,
crimes.
Detigo, in the area of magnet forensics, which is, Magnet makes the tool Axiom, which is one of our primary tools that we use. I've received advanced iOS and gray key training, advanced iOS examinations.
Oh, YouTube's so
Magnet
mad at me
Axiom
already.
advanced mobile forensics, Axiom-based computer forensic examination, and Axiom advanced computer forensics. I'm also a member of the United States Secret Service Cyber Task Force, Cyber Fraud Task Force to be specific, which runs the National Computer Forensic Institute in Hoover, Alabama, where I've been sent to for basic network investigations, Macintosh forensic training, digital investigation supervisor's course, and I received an
Sound.
award in 2020 and 2021 being ranked in the top forensic examiners with the Secret Service.
They have awards
I've
for
had
that?
training from the National White Collar Crime Center, which is they're called NW3C, in basic data recovery and acquisition, intermediate data recovery and acquisition, basic cell phone investigation, cell phone interrogation, advanced wireless network investigations, GPS interrogation, Windows artifacts, social media, identifying and seizing electronic evidence, encryption, and legal concerns for digital evidence responders. I've also
That's
been
fair.
to the SANS Institute for multiple trainings for advanced network forensics and analysis, advanced
cool.
digital forensics and incident response, hacker tools, techniques, exploits, and
I
incident
wanna be
handling.
sent to hacker tools
I've taken a
training.
course with Texas A&M Engineering Service for information security, and then for other forensic softwares, I have had Access Data Bootcamp, Access Data Mac Forensics, Encase Computer Forensics, and in addition to that, pretty much every year except for when COVID was going on, we'll go to a national
I do
training
miss
for
getting
law
sent to all the
enforcement
cool
and child
trainings.
exploitation.
I did a lot of
Thank you.
forensic
At
training.
this time, state
and I do
move to
miss
enter Investigator Grubbs
getting sent
as
to all the
a
law
expert
enforcement trainings.
in
Those
cell
are
phone
fun.
forensics.
No objections.
Qualified.
He is so
And,
qualified.
Investigator Grubbs,
He is reading his resume
in this case.
because they didn't
and,
object.
The data associated, you've analyzed some of it, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's talk specifically about Paul's phone. And to your knowledge, was that originally extracted
This is
by,
like the
I believe,
third
John
witness
Van
for
Allen of the
Paul's
Secret
phone.
Service?
Yes, sir.
And then
that information provided to Lieutenant Murdaugh?
Yes, sir.
All right, and you received that cell phone information from him, and you've analyzed it as well, correct?
I did.
Okay. And you were asked to focus on a couple of specific areas in your analysis of Paul's phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
One of which was Paul's battery habits and battery usage on his cell phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
So it's like pattern of life
I'm going
stuff?
to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 530. Do you recognize that?
I do.
Oh, no.
What is that?
That is a
They never
report
checked
that
on
I
me, though.
generated concerning Paul's phone and battery and shutdown time with the phone.
Okay. And
They
you,
never checked on me then.
Looked, in the week prior to the murders, you looked at how many times Paul's phone it died because of its battery ran out, correct?
Correct.
And you identified those times, right? And
Yes,
dates
sir.
and times.
Yes, sir.
So how many times that week did his phone die in total that week from the battery?
4.
All right. And what days were those on?
I did
It looks
trainings
like
with
June
Secret
3rd,
Service, with
twice on
FBI,
June
and with
5th,
others
and then on June
on
7th.
a variety
June
of
7th,
forensics,
It died when?
white collar crime,
It
computers.
is 22:34, 10:34.
Because I prosecuted a lot of those
34
cases.
p.m. Okay. And one of the pieces of information that cell phones log is when a phone is plugged back in after it's died to charge, correct?
Yes.
All right. And when you looked at this data of when the phone died that week, Paul's phone died, did you identify when it was plugged in?
I did, sir.
All right. And can you just
So they're
tell the
tying
jury
up the
on those
timeline of
two,
when Paul
the phone
died
each of
more.
those times and when it was plugged back in? please?
Sure. So it is logged that on June the 3rd at 12:30:27 p.m. the phone died, the battery went dead, and at 12:34:03 it had power again. It was reconnected.
And I might take that from you. And at this time, state would move to enter Exhibit 530 into evidence.
Submitted.
So narrowing down the timeline of when Paul died based on his behavior, the defense has insinuated a couple times, hey, sometimes when your battery's running low, you just stop using your phone, right? But the prosecution needs to prove the timeline is at that 8:49 timeline. It needs to be in that timeline. I just want to go back and clip Poot and prosecutor my cousin Vinny yelling at each other in court. I want to go see that again. Damn it.
Can you see anything on your screen up there? Oh, here it comes.
But now we're stuck in forensics land.
Okay, so.
Because we live here now. Prosecution's definitely not resting today. And we still haven't gotten to the GM data. So I don't even think they're resting tomorrow.
There we go. All right, so on June 3rd of 2021, what time?
Did the caption say romantic TikTok time?
On the 3rd, 12:30:27.
The captions know what people are doing with their phones.
12:34:03.
About 4 minutes later,
Yes,
correct?
sir.
A little less than 4 minutes, correct?
Yes.
June 5th, the first time, at what time did the phone die?
10:18:33.
All right, and what time was it plugged back in?
10:36:17.
So that would be roughly 17 minutes or
Yes,
so?
sir.
All right, and then June 5th, the second time, what time did it die?
29, excuse me, or 9:23 p.m.
Okay, and what time was it plugged back in?
21:30:21 or 9:30.
Okay, so roughly about 7 minutes later.
Yes, sir.
correct? Okay. All right, and you just didn't focus on when Paul's phone died in the data you reviewed, correct?
Correct.
Did you find in what you reviewed, did Paul frequently let his battery get low?
Yeah, he seemed to kind of fly close to the sun. The phone was always getting down to 1 or 2%.
I feel
before
attacked.
plugging in.
And would you say, in your opinion, from the data reviewed, the majority of the time he let it get that low, would he ultimately get it plugged in before it died?
Yes, sir.
Except during that week for those specific occasions, correct? All right.
I feel attacked. I feel attacked.
One other thing you were asked to look at.
I think we need to
Paul's
put up a
phone,
poll. I'm going to put up a poll real quick.
Were the times when his screen came on, correct?
Yes.
And when it came off, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's sometimes referred to as the backlight on a phone, correct?
Correct.
All right. And you're specifically asked to look at the time on Paul's phone starting at about 8:49 p.m. on the night of June 7th, correct?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to show you it's been marked as States 529. Take a look at that. And Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, I created this.
All right, and what is that?
It shows the backlight for the phone when it's kind of going on and off throughout that night.
For what time period?
From the period of 8:49 and then the final time of 10:34.
Okay. At this time, state would move to enter Exhibit 529 of evidence.
No objection.
Submit it. And let's, before we talk about this specific data, let's just, the jury's heard some testimony on this same backlight and screen coming on. Under what conditions, generally speaking, will a cell phone screen come on?
There's a lot of conditions that'll cause a cell phone screen to come on. If you pick up your phone, that can have the screen turn on. If you get a message or an alert from an app that you have, that can cause the screen to turn on. If the phone senses motion in a particular way, it'll turn on. There's a whole variety of ways that the backlight will
I
activate.
think you may have mentioned this, but the screen can be tapped in the.
Yes, yeah, you can simply tap your screen and that will cause it to turn on as well.
And so just to in a nutshell, the screen can come on for, sometimes there's no human interaction, correct?
Correct.
But it also can be turned on by human interaction.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's look at the information on your report real quick. All right. Okay, so
I don't know why they didn't do this witness before the last
The
one.
screen goes off, correct?
I don't know.
Paul's phone.
They should have, I
And
think,
what time does it get?
done the
next
other
time
witness
that screen
later or
lights up?
tomorrow.
The next screen on is at 10:18:08 p.m.
Okay. And in your review of Paul's phone, did you determine during that same time frame, starting at 8:49, was Paul's phone locked or unlocked?
It was locked.
Okay, so it was locked and the screen was off between 8:49 and 10:18, correct?
Yes.
It's a good question.
And then at 10:18:08, we see the screen would come on, correct?
Yes, it appears to come on for 12 seconds to 10:18:20.
Okay. And then the screen goes back off starting at what time?
10:18:20
Okay, and then it comes back on.
at 10:20:08.
All right, and how long does it come on at 10:20:08?
It goes until 10:20:20, so 12 seconds.
12 seconds? All right, and then what happens with his screen?
It goes back off at 10:20:20.
Okay, and it stays off until when?
10:34:16.
And is that the time Paul's phone died?
Yes.
All right, and so the screen may have come on briefly as the phone was
It
shutting
looks
off.
like for 4 seconds.
Okay.
I forget what time the first responder got there.
In your review of Paul's phone, did you identify some of the communications that came into his phone?
Yes, I did.
And did you identify the last text that was sent to Paul's phone?
Yes.
And do you recall who sent that text?
Rogan.
All right, and you may not remember this exactly, but well, first of all, do you recall contents of that very last text from Rogan?
Yes, it just says yo.
All right, and did this jury's heard testimony that cell phones will log when someone actually reads a text.
They
correct?
do.
And did you find any log that text yo was read?
It was not read.
Okay.
They
And do you
already
recall
did
roughly
this.
the time that text hit?
Why are we doing
Paul's
this
phone?
again?
I don't off the top of my head.
All right. Was it between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock p.m.?
Yes.
Roughly speaking? Okay. But that was the last text. No other text came to his phone after that text from Rogan that said yo.
We've
Correct.
done this.
And in your opinion, if anybody had been looking at that screen that came on at either 10:18:08 or 10:20:08, would they have seen a notification on that screen?
Most likely, yes. You can set your phone to not show contents, or sometimes if you have a text that comes through, it'll show the whole text and the contact. It depends on how it's setting, but yes, typically.
Didn't you look at the
if you were to
settings?
see the home screen of the phone, there would be the notification.
And so, depending on the settings, there's a good chance if anybody happened to be looking at that phone screen either of those times, they would have seen a text notification from Rogan Gibson, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you just testified, we don't know exactly why the screen came on at that time, correct?
We do not.
All right, it could have been somebody tapped it, correct?
Yes.
Somebody may have briefly picked up the phone, correct?
Yes.
It could have been any number of things, correct?
Yes.
Could have been raindrops
And you
falling
can't
on
tell us
it.
exactly why, though.
I cannot.
Now, this jury's heard a good bit of testimony about phone orientation changes, and we'll talk a little more about that.
Oh,
in a
God.
minute. But
Please don't.
in your opinion, is it possible for someone to just briefly pick up a phone see the screen come on, put it back down, and for the phone not to record an orientation change?
Sure.
Okay.
Why are we doing this again? I am not eating cheesy poofs. I wish I had cheesy poofs. I was eating pretzels.
All right. And you also asked to look at Maggie's phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
So we'll be moving on to something else.
Specifically, what database
Soon.
were you asked to take a look at on Maggie's phone?
Knowledge C.
All right. The jury's heard some testimony on the Knowledge C database, but just please refresh our memories what
God.
that is.
Please
and what kind
don't.
of information is contained in a Knowledge C database.
How
So
did we?
Knowledge C database is something that Apple uses in the background
Why?
to kind of track things that you're doing.
This should have.
Tracks your battery level, tracks when you plug your phone in,
Chat.
when you unplug it, a whole bunch of stuff.
We'll talk about
that
Knowledge
is
C later.
Going on in the background.
I withdraw if the chat will. I'm begging the chat's indulgence. When I said that the prosecution using the third interview as a last bit of evidence was a good strategic plan, I withdraw everything I said this morning because this witness has shown me that they are again not thinking about their witness order. This witness should have gone well before the video that we saw earlier today. So I withdraw that statement.
I have, it's a digital copy of some timeline reports.
Apologies.
From Maggie's phone.
And specifically for Maggie's phone?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I was
And
so
that
optimistic
timeline report would be from the Knowledge
that
C
we were
database?
doing
Yes,
that.
sir.
All right.
We were doing that,
And specifically,
and then a timeline witness.
a Knowledge C database can contain millions of artifacts, correct?
And now we're talking about Knowledge C
When you
again.
prepared
The
that
fuck?
timeline, did you kind of narrow it down a little bit?
Yes, I
Focus,
did.
And roughly what times on that?
I believe from 8 to past 10.
Throwing things. But I really didn't want to.
And at this time, state would move to enter Exhibit 528 into evidence. No objection.
I couldn't find it because it got lost. It was stuck on me.
Can I have the computer, please?
I did. I thought we had gotten to a good plan. I thought we had gotten to a good plan, and I was very wrong.
Okay, I'm going to pull up this spreadsheet on the computer that's in evidence on the CD. Even with a fairly narrow time frame, there's still a voluminous amount of data.
And I saw the
contained
chats
in this
about the
database. Is
agent
that
who
correct?
just
Lots of data. Yes,
testifies
sir.
mother passing away. All the more
All right,
reason
and
to
specifically,
put
let's
this
let's
witness
take it to start
first
time and end time.
and not take them out of order and give that
This-
witness more
For
time.
this particular report, you kind of limited between time, what's that start time,
God.
the first?
2053 to 8:53 p.m.
You couldn't even color code it and print it out?
We'll scroll down to the bottom real quick.
Sir, where's the summary
And It
exhibit?
looks like it stops at
You know you're allowed to do a summary
2108
exhibit,
to
right?
908.
9:08 PM?
Yes,
On
sir.
what date?
You're allowed to do a
That would be
summary
June
exhibit?
7th, 2021.
You can use color for the lines.
And there's just a whole bunch of stuff here, right?
You know
Yes, sir.
shit.
Well, let's
So
take
get
a
a
look
summary exhibit. So get a summary
at a couple things
exhibit.
specifically. Excuse me, starting at 2053, we see some orientation changes, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And in your opinion, when you see an orientation change on a phone recorded in a Knowledge C database, what does that information tell you?
Typically, that's that somebody's handling the phone.
So while a screen coming on or off may not necessarily tell you somebody's handling the phone, the orientation change definitely does, correct?
Yes, it's the phone logging that it's going from either vertical or landscape to the other.
Log it. I'm about to lose my mind. Let's just. Why are we here again? And with an Excel spreadsheet
So
that
here's-
is
let's look at
impossible.
line 1149, starting down to about 1154. You see what I'm talking about there?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
These lines here, and it says camera. What, in your review of this information, can you draw any conclusions about what's going on, why that camera pops up at about
They're using an
8:54
unlicensed
in this
version of
database?
Excel.
All I can say is that the phone is interacting with the camera in some way.
Government.
All right, did it interact for a significant period of time?
No, sir.
Do you recall roughly how long the interaction took place?
I believe it's 1 second.
We heard this. It feels like this exact same testimony like a week and a half ago. Why are we back here? Somebody said, "Can we get back to the clapping?"
Okay. All right, let's go down to line 1210. This is at 855 or 2055. And we see some things. It says iOS snapshots.
Yes, sir.
And there's looks like it says something about Facebook to the far right there, correct?
Correct.
What, in your opinion, what's going on with the phone at this point?
So a snapshot or an iOS snapshot is something that your phone does when you minimize an app in the background. So if you close Facebook and put it kind of in the background, it takes a little snapshot of it, so when you pull it up, you can see what it is. It'll do this for, as we see here, Facebook, which we can pull up and see. It does this for a bunch of apps. Not all apps take a picture of it. Some things will just be a blank screen. For example, if you do your camera, it's not going to store a picture of what your camera was looking at. When you have it, it's just a black screen.
Okay. And so it does, in your opinion, does this mean anybody's actually accessing the Facebook app or actually physically taking snapshots on this phone?
No.
All right. In fact, it's not doing that, correct?
Correct.
All right. In fact, in your view, the time frame on this report's 8:53 to approximately 9:08 p.m.
A summary
correct?
chart.
Yes.
You could just
And
show
during that
that.
time, in your review, was Maggie's phone locked or unlocked?
That was locked.
Okay.
If this is
And it
supposed to
remained
be
locked,
the timeline witness,
starting at what time?
and there's no summary timeline, I'm going to
it's-
lose my mind.
You may have to draw your memory
All
because this
of it.
doesn't start till 8:53, but it's prior to 8:53, correct?
Yes.
Counsel,
And it's
you're
remains
having a
locked
private conversation with
until
this
the next
witness,
day,
and the
correct?
rest of
Yes.
us are excluded. We have no idea what you're talking about. You've not made it easy. You are not summarizing anything when you're just pulling up an
And
express
then we're going to scroll
spreadsheet.
down, starting at line 1243. I see a whole bunch of stuff here. And just generally speaking, what is all this stuff in this database at this time?
It's just background processes that your phone's running.
Okay.
This is not summary. Wolf Rebel asks, is it because Alec fiddled with the phone
And I think we're
after
going to
the
skip by
911
that, so I'm
call?
just going to ask you real quick.
It might have
but
been,
In this.
but he did say that.
This time frame, we also see, looks like the Siri app pop up in the Knowledge database,
Yes.
correct? And how can the Siri app be triggered? In what
It
way?
could be a background process that's going on, or it could be triggered by somebody holding the power button or interacting with Siri.
Okay.
My Siri's triggered all the time. All the time.
We're almost done here.
We are?
I'll be done by then.
Okay.
Then what is the point? Okay.
Okay.
Accurate?
Well, the information is in this log, but did you identify a time after 9 o'clock when Maggie's screen turned off?
When her screen turned off?
Yes.
Yes.
And was that at 9:07 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay.
He's like,
And
it's
after
just, it's in the
9:07
log.
p.m.,
It's just in there somewhere.
did you identify at any point over the next few minutes, or over the next 20 minutes, that Maggie's screen turned on?
I believe it turned back on at 9:31.
Okay. So between 9:07 and 9:31, Maggie's screen is off, correct?
Yes.
All right. And
We've already gone
and
over
also,
this.
you just said this a minute ago, it's also locked during that time, correct?
Yes.
All right. And so if Maggie's phone were thrown between 9:07 and 9:31, when the screen's off and the phone is locked, in your opinion, would you see an orientation change?
Is that
No,
the
sir,
point?
that version of iOS that she has on her phone did not log that at that particular time.
Or
So
would
that
not
version,
log that.
which was what at that time?
14.6.
All right. And that version of iOS, if a screen's off and the phone's locked, the phone's not going to record an orientation change.
That is correct.
Okay. No
Okay.
further questions, John.
So all of that to get to that? Why not
We're going
save
to
this?
adjourn for the day, ladies and gentlemen, and
For your
resume at
rebuttal case.
9:30 to tomorrow morning. But everyone will stay in place until the jury leaves.
Yeah, the court is not adjourned, y'all. Court is not adjourned yet. Oh my goodness. Today has been absolutely unhinged. Wow. I'm waiting to see if the court has anything else to say. And if he does, we'll go there. And if he doesn't, we will do our best to to summarize. I think they're going to do some scheduling at least.
With regard to the court's earlier ruling
Cousin Eddie?
Excluding not allowing the roadside shooting incident, during cross-examination, I find that the defense
Came in
opened
like
the
a wrecking
door
bar.
to all of that testimony by questioning the witness as
Look
to
at Jim. He knows.
the relationship between Mr. Murdaugh and Eddie Smith, payment of money to buy drugs, indebtedness, his overall relationship, and in order to not mislead the jury and to
Completeness.
under the doctrine of completeness and fairness, the court reverses its decision and will allow examination of witnesses regarding that relationship. And we'll be in recess till tomorrow morning, 9:30.
Well, I think the judge had made the right call earlier in the day. I think the defense was fighting a fight that was a red herring for the prosecution. I think the prosecution has done this at times too. But I will be very interested to see if we see the prosecution change course tomorrow. So today, the roadside incident was ruled to be kept out and then ruled to be allowed in. Jim had a very good cross-examination today of the lead investigator. But that was absolutely the right ruling after the defense leaned in. Pastor Flash, I don't think the judge is biased at all. The judge kept it out. The defense went, woohoo, and went ramming through it and knew that the judge would change his mind. I think they are trying to goad the prosecution. Trial is not just about presenting witnesses. You are not just playing your game, you're also playing your opponent. And you could see Jim smiling at counsel table as the court was making their ruling that they had opened the door. So I think that this is baiting the prosecution, but it also feeds into the defense. Cousin Eddie is a red herring mess in this trial. Cousin Eddie's testimony, if he testifies, is going to be likely disastrous. He's given lots of conflicting statements that we know of. The defense made a motion about a polygraph test that Cousin Eddie had sat for. The polygraph test wouldn't come in, but the defense needs to seem like they don't want it in because they want the prosecution to bring it in so they can cross-examine Cousin Eddie. They don't want to bring Cousin Eddie as a witness. They want the prosecution to bring Cousin Eddie as a witness, and they're trying to push it like fucking salt and pepper over here. They are trying to push the prosecution into bringing in Cousin Eddie, I think. Maybe they're not, but the way that Jim went in, he went in such a deliberate fashion that I can't believe anything else that other than that Jim wanted this evidence to come in and he wants the prosecution to bring it in. That's just it. Cousin Eddie becomes the red herring. Cousin Eddie becomes the reasonable, well, this is really the guy that did it. And whether Alec paid him to or not, or whether Alec knew he was going to or not, Cousin Eddie becomes the, yeah, but doesn't he seem more murdery to you? Like, that's where we're going to get. That's where we're going to get in this trial. And the prosecution is stuck, I think. Because if the prosecution doesn't bring in Cousin Eddie, or doesn't bring in more testimony about Cousin Eddie, then it's like, oh my God, they're paying this guy like $50,000 a month and like $500 here. And the defense asked, but isn't Cousin Eddie skimming off the top and not paying the Cowboys, not the football team or whatever? So isn't Cousin Eddie really causing the problems? And leaving that vaguely in the jury's mind is a huge problem for the prosecution. So the court has to allow the rest of it in because the defense leaned into it. So it's just a mess. Delia, if Cousin Eddie says Alec paid him, Alec didn't commit the murders. And then Alec has to be acquitted. Alec paid me to do it, so I did it. Okay, then Alec didn't do it. He's not being charged with aiding and abetting. He's not being charged with murder for hire. He's being charged with doing it. And leaving Cousin Eddie out there is just a vague thing. Leaving Eddie Smith's name out there. Oh, Eddie Smith. It gives doubt. But bringing him in also brings in doubt. So the prosecution is going to have to sit down and be like, well, now what? Well, now what? Do we ask another witness about the roadside incident? Do we just bring in Alec's interview about the roadside incident and not bring in Cousin Eddie? There is no one sleeping tonight. They are going to have to eat something more than Cheez-Its and soda for dinner and actually have a conversation about how they are going to address the Cousin Eddie issue that is now an issue. And depending on what's in the tape, I think I would play, here's what I would think I would play based on how the prosecution's argued so far. The 911 call about the roadside incident and the interview, and try to leave it there. But I think this is defense strategy. I really, really do think this is defense strategy. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens tomorrow morning. I think the prosecution brings in those two things that they were asking to bring in and does not bring in Cousin Eddie. And if they have to bring in Cousin Eddie, they wait until after the defense's case to try to bluff with the defense. That's what I would do. Oh, but I wanted to go back and look. Oh, I wanted to go back and look at the Sass chat. I wanted to go look at the Sass if we're going to sum up today. Hold on. Before we do a summary of today, that's very interesting. At the end of the day, the court's like, you did it now. And they sure did. And I can't think that that wasn't intentional. Jim knew exactly what this judge would do. This judge has been very clear in the way he rules. Whether you agree with his ruling or not, this judge has been very clear in how he rules. And after that questioning, the judge's ruling was absolutely predictable. Absolutely predictable. So I'm hoping that I can back up a little bit. I'm going to close the audio. I'm hoping I can back up a little bit to get to that exchange between attorneys, because I really, really want to see it again. I really want to see it again. I really do. So let's see. Let me make sure I've got the right screen shared, and then we'll go back and see it again. So could Cousin Eddie backfire for the defense? Cousin Eddie is such a wild card, but it could also make this case such a fucking sideshow that we've all lost the point entirely. And that is a problem too. So yes, Cousin Eddie could backfire on everybody. Cousin Eddie could backfire on everybody but Cousin Eddie, including Cousin Eddie at this point. All right, I'm trying to back up till we get to, let's see.
DNA from that blood came back to whom?
Maggie Murdaugh. Yes, sir.
And he asked you about some guns. Did
I just want to get to, this is probably a bad question.
Rain jacket?
I didn't make a note
I would think so.
of when that was,
Being a rain
unfortunately, because we were watching. Let's see. Oh, maybe I should go back to the other feed. Let's see.
Which through my investigation,
Section's overruled.
funeral. She told us she saw it.
Okay, no, it's after this. It's after that. I think it's here. I think it's here.
He asked you about
Nope.
your testimony to the Colleton grand jury.
Yes.
It's after this.
And did that some of his financial crimes? Information
Sorry, y'all.
he
I want to find it.
originally gave two, but remembered in the follow-up, one of them had been replaced?
Yes, sir.
All right. We're too far back. I'm trying to remember this testimony, and it's hard because we're too far back and the streams are long, so jumping around is difficult. I might need to go to the other stream because I want to see when Poot stands up and see if we can get from there. But I'm trying. I really might have to just... Oh, there we go. We're there. Oh, we're not going to see it. Darn it. All right, I'll have to go to another stream. Give me one sec.
Him,
No, sir.
Alex Murdaugh, any of the lawyers there?
No.
They give you consent to search Alameda that night?
Hold on.
No, sir.
They said, go search Alameda.
No, sir.
Is that funny?
Okay, here we are. So I'm gonna go back to the triple feed. He's asking, so he says go search Alameda. He says go search Alameda. Hold on, let's swoop. I want to look at this again. We'll go find it from another angle too. He says, did he say to you go search Alameda? And then Poot starts laughing. And this attorney turns around and goes, is that funny? Directly to counsel, which is completely inappropriate. And then Poot starts to respond and then shifts directly into showman mode and stands up and is like, Your Honor, that is completely inappropriate for him to address me. And this attorney starts backing down and apologizing again, like he did the last time when he spat out a question that he wasn't supposed to say and Poot threw his papers. And this attorney's like, I'm sorry. Everybody, sorry. So sorry. So let's do this again. It was just a moment. Everybody's tired. Everybody's a little punchy. I'm going to turn the audio up. Turn the radio up. Turn the radio on. No, I'm in the wrong tab. Damn it. Wrong tab. All right, here we go. Let's see.
Is that funny?
Is that funny?
They give you consent to search Alameda that night?
No, sir.
They said, go search Alameda.
No, sir.
Is that funny?
I'm sorry.
Him addressing me. If I found his question humorous, I'm sorry. I thought it was a funny question.
You can't laugh at
It was a
co-counsel.
rhetorical question. I asked the court to instruct him not to address me, but the witness. Thank you.
The prosecutor should have said, and I instruct counsel not to laugh at me. Do I amuse you? It's just these two. And you can see Poot do it. You can see him recompose and stand up and be like, Your Honor. Because Poot's whole theory of the case is that this prosecutor's office and this police department are just coming down on the head of Alec Murdaugh for no reason. And they are heavy-handed and they are bringing down the heavy-handed arm of the state. So when the prosecutor does stuff like that, Poot takes a minute to remind the jury, Your Honor, how dare he? First of all, how dare you? Second of all, Your Honor, instruct him not to speak to me. It's such a fucking power move. These two are just peeing in the corners of the courtroom until they can establish dominance one way or the fucking other. It's hilarious. It's inappropriate of the prosecutor. Dick shouldn't have laughed at counsel table, though. I get it. It's kind of funny. But Poot is just like, hold on. The way he composed himself in the moment, instead of saying, counsel, I shouldn't have laughed. The way he composed himself in the moment to make it work for him shows you how long he's been doing this. That shows you the trial skill. Because that's a moment that a lot of prosecutors would just say, or a lot of defense attorneys would just say, I shouldn't have laughed. And the prosecutor would have just, and then it would have moved on. But no, not in this courtroom. And those little moments of watching people in action and how, because you see it. I'm fascinated. You see Poot starting to maybe apologize, and then he thinks about it for a second and uses it to his advantage. It is very, very smart.
They give you consent to search Alameda that night?
No, sir.
They said, go search Alameda.
No, sir.
Is that funny?
See?
Him addressing me.
I object.
If I found his question humorous, I'm sorry. I thought it was a funny question. It was a rhetorical question. I asked the court to instruct him not to address me, but the witness. Thank you.
Oh, they all laughed.
proceed.
And Jim didn't make it a moment. Poot
I guess the point is
makes it a
Griffin said
moment.
they were
He
bending over,
does.
one to help, one to do all this.
He does apologize for laughing, but most attorneys, when he holds his finger up, would say, "I'm sorry for laughing," and would have stopped there, but he doesn't. It's just, oh, I still think Dick's terrible. I don't think Dick's terrible. Let me be clear. I don't think that Dick is a terrible lawyer. I think that he is calculated, and his style often rubs me the wrong way. I often find his style off-putting. I don't think he's a terrible lawyer. He can be very disorganized, but there are times when his disorganization is a complete act. So no, I don't think he's terrible. He annoys the shit out of me sometimes, though. A little bit different for me. His style just rubs me the wrong way. But he is effective, and he does use moments to his advantage. So I don't think he's a terrible lawyer. I think his style is very, very off-putting. Very off-putting. Anyway, I thought that was funny. It wasn't a rhetorical question. I mean, he thinks it was a rhetorical question. Oh, these lawyers are getting punchy. They're getting punchy. And it rattles the prosecution when Poot does stuff like that. And his job is to rattle the prosecution. So it is a very schmarmy style, but I think it's effective for him. I hate it. But I'm also not part of that club of lawyers at all. His gamesmanship is very, very clear. It's very clear. So let's do a quick summary. I had to watch it again. Thanks y'all for coming along with me. We're going to be premiering the podcast in a minute. So I've got to answer a few questions and then wrap so the podcast can premiere, and we can all go over there and just keep chatting in the chat, and I can stop talking because my throat is starting to hurt. So let's swoop real quick. This afternoon was probably one of the better cross-examinations that I've seen in this trial at all by Jim Griffin of the lead investigator. I thought with the lead investigator, we would get into a timeline witness and be done. And of course, that's not what happened at all. The state then brought in another cell phone witness to talk about whether Paul plugged his phone in regularly after it died, how many times his phone dies, the fact that he flies too close to the sun. He keeps his phone on E and then plugs it in. He's like Kramer in that episode of Seinfeld where he's just driving off into the distance to see how many miles he can get with his tank on E. That's what we're getting. Ride the phone until it dies. How long does 1% battery really last? How much TikToking can I do? But he brought it in for that pattern of he regularly plugs it in afterwards. I think that probably could have waited till the rebuttal case, but maybe they didn't want to. Then we heard a little bit about when Maggie's phone last changed orientation and the fact that if Maggie's phone was screen off and locked and hurled from a vehicle or thrown or whatever, it wouldn't change orientation, or the orientation change wouldn't be logged. Most of the chat felt offended. Let's go ahead and end the poll and see how many of you also fly too close to the sun on your battery. So that was the last witness. I was very confused. And then at the very end of the day, the judge said, remember my ruling from earlier that none of the roadside incident stuff is coming on? Well, once again, defense has flung the French doors open and said, hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. And this evidence is all coming in. So now we are going to end up with at least another day of a trial on the roadside incident, it feels like to me. I think it might be too much, but after the judge kept it out, the defense just kept poking at that hole and asked a ton of questions to the investigating officer about Cousin Eddie. Cousin Eddie was getting paid, and Cousin Eddie was getting paid for drugs, and Cousin Eddie was getting $50,000 a week, and Cousin Eddie wasn't paying off the Cowboys, not the football team, and Cousin Eddie this and Cousin Eddie that, or Eddie Smith this and Eddie Smith that. And so now the judge is like, remember what I said earlier? Yeah, all that's coming in. So tomorrow, we'll be talking a lot more about the roadside incident. I thought that's what we were doing today, but we weren't, and now we are again. This trial has wandered so far. I have forgotten the point. I'm not sure how they're going to make their point. There's a lot of inconsistencies in Alec's story. Some of them I think the defense will be able to patch. Some of them might be too glaring in the minds of the jury for them to acquit him. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be unable to come to a verdict. This has been a winding case that has not been clearly presented. And at the end of the day, that is the biggest struggle for the prosecution, is the case they are too close to, and it is very big because they are taking Alec Murdaugh as a whole instead of scraping out everything but the murder case and then building from there. They are taking everything and trying to shove it into a murder case versus the other way around. The other way around is what they should do. Start with the murders and then build out. Okay, do you need motive? What is the motive? And the defense pointed that out really well today on cross-examination. The defense said, you didn't even start looking for the clothes that were in that Snapchat video with the tree until you didn't find what you wanted, essentially, on the white shirt and the olive shorts that he was wearing when police arrested him. Instead of not testing, the prosecution and investigation was in a rock and a hard place situation with that too, because if they hadn't tested what he was wearing when police showed up, then it would have been like, well, you don't even know, you didn't test it. And if they do test it, it's like, well, you didn't think he changed clothes because you tested it. So they're going to have to make their theory clear, and clear communication is not this prosecution team's strong point. I think they probably confuse people when they order their meals. I feel like they leave people more confused.
Respond to that.
Siri agrees. All right, the plug, the poll. Do you fly too close to the sun with your cell phone battery? Yes, I feel attacked, 42%. I plug it in under 50%, 29%. No, running out is awful, 27%, with 10,000 of you voting. Woo! I think Cousin Eddie is a big old red herring in this case, but we'll see. Look, I still can't tell you. I still can't tell you my clear theory of the case. Most of the things I tell you about this case from all the evidence we've watched are like, it could be this, it could be that. It could be this, it could be that. The prosecution needs to present a case where they say, it is this, and this leads to murder. So tomorrow we will resume with that. Let's get to a few questions. Miguelina, can we bump the premiere back to because we only have 10 minutes, to 4:50, please? Thank you so much. All right, let's go. Let's ask questions and then we'll go talk about Alec Baldwin. I mean, another Alec with a gun. Y'all can just hang out with me until it's time for Peter's recap at the end of the day. I'm here for it. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Why the clapping? What was that about? I think the prosecution was frustrated. I do. I think he was frustrated and he was trying to reset himself. I don't know. I couldn't see it because he was out of range on video, but I think the prosecutor was trying to reset himself because he was flustered. That's what I think happened. Oh, what was the point of today's cell phone data? I think the point of today's cell phone data was to show that Maggie's phone could have been thrown out of the car earlier than they're saying, and that Paul's phone powering off and not being immediately plugged in doesn't leave room for him to be dead when the phone goes off. So that is where I'm at. So let's answer a few more questions. Emily, I need to know what you think, guilty or not. I am not there yet either way. I don't think he's not guilty. I don't think the state has proved that he's guilty. I think his behavior is really sussy, but I don't think that's enough to prove murder. And I think that there's stuff there that the prosecution could tie together that might be enough for a jury, but I am definitely not there yet. But the trial's not over. God, and I don't think it's gonna be. Today's Wednesday. I think we have at least till the end of next week before the jury sees this case. Lord help us all. We live here now. So I don't know yet. I think that there's no way he's not involved. Do I think he murdered them? I don't. I truly just don't know. And even him being involved is so odd. But murder doesn't always make sense, because when you make the decision to kill somebody else, it's like, that doesn't make sense. This is a premeditated first-degree murder that they've charged. This isn't a boat wreck or a car wreck or it. And they're not even arguing it's heat of passion. Like there was an argument or a fight or something was found out or it was a bar fight and somebody got pushed and fell. It's such an odd case. It's just such an odd case. And the state has not proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt yet for me. Does it mean I don't think he's involved? No. It's so weird. And my questions remain unanswered. So that's where I'm at. And I think my feelings of like how sussy the defendant is and the facts that have been presented are two totally different things for me. So my feelings are, you involved. But the facts that have been presented to the jury, we have not pushed me into the proven beyond a reasonable doubt camp yet. Emily, I think the defense opened the door intentionally. Oh, yes. They were objecting to Cousin Eddie's testimony, so the state would call the lead investigator first. Maybe they were. And we'll see. I don't think financial crime equals murder. I agree with you. I tried a lot of financial crimes. Most of them didn't end in murder. It's not to say people who commit financial crimes don't also commit more violent crimes. That can happen. But the whole case is so odd. It's so odd. But again, the prosecution might get to no one else had motive and opportunity. But I don't know if that's been clearly presented. I don't know if the jury's to no one else has motive and opportunity. And the defense has so far done a good job of, but there's other people. But Alec owes people a lot of money. And they're doing a good job of shifting the facts from, well, this could point to guilt, but this could point to not guilt. And they're doing a very good job. Alec tried to influence two witnesses. Yep. Sure did. Real sussy. And talked about it in that interview with police a little, in that last interview, saying, well, people are saying I fixed this and fixed that. People have been saying you have fixed juries forever, Alec. People have been saying that you obstructed justice after the boat case. Yep, they sure did say that. You've been charged with it now. So yeah, people were saying you fixed things and you were trying to fix these witnesses. But I don't know if the state has tied that all together. And I think the jury's going to want to see, but how does this help him? How does the death of his wife and son benefit him at all? He clearly does things for his own benefit. All of the financial crimes are for his benefit. So how does he benefit? And I don't know if they're going to agree with the state saying he benefits because the other stuff goes away. But they might. The criminal prosecution of Paul went away. The civil case would have gone away. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. Any kind of lawyerly sixth sense that signals Alec testifying or not, I think leaks to the press about Alec testifying are red herrings. I think it's to distract the prosecution. I don't think Alec is going to testify. I think he's talked enough. He's gotten his story in through these other witnesses. His defense has done a good job of getting his story in through his interviews and through other witnesses, and I see no benefit to him testifying. That might change. I changed my mind today. I changed my mind a lot. That might change. But right now, there's no benefit. There's only downside to him testifying. I think Eddie may know a lot, but will he tell? I think Eddie might know a lot too. Can the judge yeet both lawyers for their antics? No. He can admonish them, but he cannot yeet them. Deidre said, I was not trying to do that.
Are you not entertained? I was very entertained at parts of today.
Not all of today, but I was very entertained for parts of today. And really, when we're watching these cases, not all of them are going to be the same. Not all of them are going to be linear and well tried and well executed. Sometimes it's just a fucking train wreck. This case has been a mess. And I'm really trying not to use, I need a better analogy for a disaster. The shit has hit the fan. I need a better one, because they said train wreck. Damn it, we've gone again. Said it the other day, and I was like, no, there's too many sussy actual train wrecks in the world at the moment. That's not the analogy I want, but I don't know what analogy I do want. I don't know. I need another one. I don't think Cousin Eddie could get off those kill shots so cleanly. Well, he couldn't kill Alec from 4 feet away, so it's a point. And Bubba has got the chicken. That's true. Question, what about the cooler? they're going to have to call CB Rowe if they want to get into the cooler. The leading guest investigator said that there was a cooler and then it wasn't there and then it was there, but it was so unclear. The Titanic. It's the Titanic. It is the Titanic. It's just iceberg straight ahead. We're going with that and dumpster fire and dumpster fire. It really is. Iceberg. I think dumpster fire is right. We're gonna go with like the shit has hit the fan inside of a dumpster that is lighted on fire. It is what did they say? A heated mess, to quote Pitch Perfect. Dick's just urinating for distance. What are you gonna do? He really is. He really is trying to get his scent on all aspects of this courtroom, like only he can. Do you think they will go for a plea at some point because not going well for the state? No. There's nowhere for them to go on a plea with this, and Alec wouldn't do it. He spent too much money. No way Eddie testifies. He has too many pending charges, and as a criminal defense attorney in North Carolina, I could not see D wanting him to invoke the fifth in front of the jury. I couldn't see them wanting him to invoke the fifth in front of the jury either, but they're baiting something. They know more about what Cousin Eddie's going to say than any of us do. And the state has the power to make some of those other cases go away. Danielle says, I'm curious, EDB, what would you do? I don't have the whole case file, but what I think I would do is use the videos. Didn't Eddie say Alec Murdaugh confessed the murders to him? I don't know. We haven't heard from Cousin Eddie. And I haven't seen Cousin Eddie say that out of his mouth on video elsewhere. Can they prosecute Alec Murdaugh for murder for hire? No. He double jeopardy has attached. They can prosecute him for this, but they can't go ahead and prosecute him for aiding and abetting this. I don't think it's distinct enough. I really don't. I would love, if somebody disagrees with me, please disagree with me and explain to me why. I would love to hear it. My brain is very tired. But if somebody thinks that there's a way they can prosecute him for helping with this that's not double jeopardy, I would sure love to hear it because I can't think a way around it. What isn't a mess in this case? Maybe their lunches are good at the food trucks? Jim smiled like a cat who ate the cream, but got the canary. That not only ate the cream, but got the canary too. He did at the end. He was just like, they know. These are not dumb attorneys. These are very savvy attorneys. Their style sometimes rubs me the wrong way. There are times I'm like, what are you doing? But even when I'm like, what in the world are you doing to Dick? By the end, I can generally see where he's going. I'm like, oh, that's what you're doing. Again, the style often rubs me the wrong way. But to be perfectly frank, chat, this is going to shock you. This is going to shock you. I get really sick of schmarmy dude attorneys who think they know everything. Because it's a whole career of dealing with schmarmy dude attorneys who think they know everything. And that's me. That's my own internal bias that it rubs me the wrong way because I have dealt with so many attorneys like Dick Harpootlian. It doesn't mean he's not effective. It just rubs me the wrong way. So, and I try very hard to say, no, that was effective, and try to make it clear when it rubs me the wrong way personally versus I don't think he's doing a good job. Elaine, there were times she's like, I'm trying, Your Honor. I'm like, girl, get it together. I don't think you've done many trials. Dick has done a lot of trials. A lot of trials. What if Cousin Eddie said he was paid to clean up? Wouldn't that be something? Wasn't Cousin Eddie already ruled out by DNA? I mean, his DNA wasn't there. I have a phone in every room, car, work, solar chargers, and the phone dies still. Oh, phone charger. It's at 38%. Fair enough. Do you think they will go for a plea? Oh, we already talked about that. No. Emily, I love seeing your family pop into your show. Please thank them for sharing you with us. I will. They have been fantastic, and I will absolutely tell them that. Can they try him for hire if the jury hangs? I would have to think about that. My brain is very tired at the end of the day. I don't know off the top of my head if you can try him, if it hangs, if you can change the charges. I would need to think about that as both a real and practical matter. So with that, y'all, I know there are some statements I did not get to. I appreciate all of you. Could prosecution say Alec paid Cousin Eddie $500,000 not to do the murder, only to take away the guns and clothing? They can't argue that unless they have evidence of it. You can't argue things that aren't in evidence. So they would have to get that in evidence. So it would have to be in evidence. With that, y'all, it's time to head over to this week's podcast. I've not been premiering them. Shockingly, y'all love it when they get premiered and don't love it so much when they don't. So I'll be in the chat with all of you in just a minute. We will premiere that video. I look forward to seeing you over there. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being law nerds. We're going to go talk about the really surprising things that I found when I went through the Alec Baldwin probable cause declaration, the criminal charges there. Don't worry, it's a podcast. It's under an hour. I've got it. It's under an hour. So with all of that, thank you for being here. Thank you for being law nerds. I'll be back with live trial coverage tomorrow. If you want to listen to the podcast on your favorite podcasting app, you can do that too. Okay, bye.
You can find all the Law Nerd goodies at lawnerdshop.com. Connect with me on social media at the Emily D. Baker. And don't forget to check out my podcasts, The Emily Show, and the new podcast, Quick Bits, summarizing everything I talk about on my Tuesday and Thursday live streams. You know, when you only have time for just the quick bits.